So, good morning everyone. वेलकम टू लेवल अप आईएएस। आप लोग 2027 के लिए एग्जाम देना चाह रहे हैं? ओके। आपको ऐसा लगता है क्या लेट हो गए प्रिपरेशन शुरू करने में? ऐसा लगता है समटाइम्स। ओके, नहीं हुआ है लेट। देखो, फर्स्ट थिंग, कीप दैट असाइड कि लेट हो गया है ना, नहीं हुआ है बिकॉज सी, दिस इज एन एग्जाम वेयर इवन इन प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन 99% बच्चे सिलेक्ट नहीं होते हैं। 10 lakh people will apply for exam and only 1% will clear preliminary examination. And सबसे ज्यादा सिलेक्शन होने ना होने में इट इज डिसाइडेड बाय हाउ मच एफर्ट्स यू आर पुटिंग टुवर्ड्स द एंड। इन द इनिशियल फेजेस, पीपल हु स्टार्टेड इन अप्रैल मई जून, उनको उनमें और आप पे ना बहुत डिफरेंस नहीं है, बिकॉज दे आर टेकिंग थिंग्स इन अ वेरी रिलैक्स्ड मैनर। कभी अभी तो एग्जाम बहुत दूर है। तो फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू शुड कीप आउट ऑफ योर हेड इज you are late. You are not. You may have to put slightly more efforts than students who started in March or students who started in January, but you're not late. Second thing that I want all of you to understand is this: कि this exam is not about perfection. We all come from a kind of good academic backgrounds, because otherwise ना इंडिया में हम सिविल सर्विसेज प्रिपरेशन का ज्यादा सोचते नहीं है। एंड in that background, what we were doing was we were always trying to perfect things. They say, I'm a computer science graduate from IIT Roorkee. Now, for me, मैंने आप में से कोई कंप्यूटर साइंस पढ़ा है? आप कंप्यूटर साइंस पढ़े? फॉर मी, मेरे लिए ना एक एल्गोरिदम की किताब होती थी, कॉर्मन। आपने वो यूज करी? मेरे को उस बुक के फर्स्ट पेज से लास्ट पेज तक कहीं से कुछ भी पूछ लो, आई वाज लाइक मैं सॉल्व कर दूंगा। तो जब प्लेसमेंट्स का सिचुएशन आया, फर्स्ट माइक्रोसॉफ्ट वाज द फर्स्ट कंपनी दैट आई वाज द फर्स्ट पर्सन टू गेट हायर्ड। बट इफ आई स्टार्ट प्रैक्टिसिंग दैट हियर, I'll hamper my chances of getting selected in this examination. So this exam is not about perfection. This exam is being above average in everything. The reason, वहां पे कॉर्मन पढ़ के प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग एल्गोरिदम हो गई, उससे ही सिलेक्शन होना है। यहाँ पे कॉर्मन जैसी 10 किताबें होंगी, एंड यू कैन नॉट अचीव परफेक्शन इन each one of them. जितने पेजेस कॉर्मन में थे कंप्यूटर साइंस पढ़ने के लिए, उतना बस आर्ट एंड कल्चर निखिल सर पढ़ाएंगे आपको। एंड इफ यू ट्राई टू अचीव दिस कि एंड टू एंड मुझे सब आना चाहिए, सब मेरे टिप्स पे होना चाहिए, व्हाट वुड हैपन, यू विल नो एंड टू एंड those things, but in preliminary examination out of 100 only 15 questions would come from there. So now another thing which you should not do is you should not try to run behind perfection. Please understand, in preliminary examination out of 200, cut off this year perhaps is 75 76, 195 नहीं है ना cut off. In mains examination, cut off remains around 750. Out of 1750 roughly, mains examination में cut off remains around 750. So we have to do above average in everything to get rank 1. We don't have to do this कि एक में बहुत ज्यादा perfect है, बाकी सारी चीजें आती नहीं है. We have to be above average in everything. आपसे पॉलिटी पूछा जाए तो when compared to your other students, your competitors, you should be among our above average students. जब इकोनॉमी पूछा जाए, rather than being perfect in economy, you should be above average. इकोनॉमी एवरेज सबको आ जाएगी, a step ahead. Science above average, environment above average, answer writing above average, practice above average. तो civil services examination is about being above average in everything. एक जनरलिस्ट जॉब है, इट्स नॉट अ टेक्निकल एग्जाम जहां पे एकदम परफेक्टली चीजें आनी चाहिए। अमंग्स यू पीपल, या और भी जो बच्चे हैं आपके साथ पढ़ेंगे, लाइक you'll be studying with a bigger classroom in coming days. दो स्टूडेंट्स और आप या उनमें से कुछ बच्चे सिलेक्ट हो जाएंगे, कुछ बच्चे सिलेक्ट नहीं। वी आर नॉट सेइंग 100% सिलेक्शन गारंटी, बट लेट्स से शी गेट सिलेक्टेड। ये बच्ची इसके पीछे पता है क्या बोलेगी, अरे मेरे साथ ही पढ़ती थी, से ज्यादा कुछ नहीं आता था फिर भी सिलेक्ट हो गई। हाँ, आपके साथ ही पढ़ती थी, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं आता था फिर भी सिलेक्ट हो गई, बिकॉज ज्यादा कुछ नहीं आता था, शी वाज अबव एवरेज इन एवरीथिंग। आपको लगेगा कुछ एक्सेप्शनल तो था ही नहीं, हाउ डिड शी गेट रैंक 3, रैंक 2? ऐसा तो कुछ स्पेशल था ही नहीं। शी केम फ्रॉम एन एवरेज एकेडमिक बैकग्राउंड, एकदम सबसे टॉप कॉलेज से नहीं होगी, मतलब पर मान लो मैं आई डू नॉट नो यू, तो आई डू आई एम नॉट, सबसे एकदम टॉप कॉलेज से नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, ऐसा कुछ स्पेशल तो था नहीं। शी ensured she is above average in everything. This GS Foundation program will make you go there. थोड़ा hectic रहेगा because you'll have 2 classes also. We'll talk about how do you handle that. Rather than again perfection achieve करने के हम क्या करेंगे, मुझे अपने notes above average तरीके से आते हैं, and you will see you will clear this examination. If you'll try to achieve this, नहीं 2 lectures चल रहे हैं, मैं एक ही करता हूं पर बहुत अच्छे से करेंगे, फिर वो सेकंड ईयर का साइकिल, थर्ड ईयर का साइकिल, दिस वुड अकर। ओके, तो लेट मी आई हैव जस्ट बीन गिवन 15 मिनट्स, मैंने 5-6 मिनट ये कोर आइडिया समझाने में बिता दिया, क्योंकि ना बहुत अब जो पुराने बैचेस चल रहे हैं ना, उसमें द मिस्टेक स्टूडेंट्स आर डूइंग इज दिस, दे आर ट्राइंग टू बी परफेक्ट इन सम एरियाज। परफेक्शन से उस पर्टिकुलर एरिया के टीचर बन जाओगे, सिविल सर्वेंट नहीं बन। A person whose rank 1 is not the person जो हिस्ट्री सबसे ज्यादा जानता है, जो ज्योग्राफी सबसे ज्यादा जानता है, जो एनवायरनमेंट सबसे ज्यादा जानता है, जो जिसकी आंसर राइटिंग सबसे परफेक्ट है, नहीं। हु इज रैंक 1? रैंक 1 इज अ पर्सन जो सब में अबव एवरेज करके आया है। इसको समझ जाना और इस चीज को हमेशा ध्यान रखना। Now let us talk about the foundation program. See, foundation program at LevelUp IAS will be different in the sense, आप एक बार यहाँ पे आए हो, अब आपके मेंस तक सारी जिम्मेदारी किसकी है? हमारी है, एक्सेप्ट योर ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट। नाइदर एट एनी अदर इंस्टीट्यूशन नॉर एट लेवल अप आईएएस यू वुड नीड टू जॉइन एनी अदर कोर्स। आपकी प्रिपरेशन को जो चाहिए अभी से मेंस तक, एवरीथिंग इज इंक्लूडेड इन दिस प्रोग्राम। तो सबसे पहले कुछ और करना है, कहीं और से करना है, वो सब बंद करना। आपको जितना पढ़ाया जाएगा उससे यू कैन क्लियर द एग्जामिनेशन। जितना पढ़ाया गया है उसे 10 बार रिवाइज करेंगे, 20 बार रिवाइज करेंगे, अगर समय मिल रहा है तो, रादर देन कुछ और उठा के पढ़ना शुरू कर देना। ओके, तो यू विल हैव 2 classes अ डे फॉर जीएस। यू मे बी डूइंग ऑप्शनल क्लास ऑल्सो, तो टोटल 6-7 घंटे क्लास होगी। 7 घंटे क्लास होगी, पढ़ेंगे कब? है ना, दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। देखो, इन योर प्रिपरेशन एक रूल जो आपको फॉलो करना पड़ेगा वो है, गिव टिल दिसंबर गिव हाफ ऑफ योर टाइम टू ऑप्शनल। तो 2 ऑप्शनल की यू मे हैव 1 क्लास, बट स्टिल लेट्स से इन अ डे यू आर स्टडिंग फॉर 11 आवर्स, 12 आवर्स। आपके केस में आपको करना पड़ेगा। बाकी बच्चों को 8-10 घंटे बोलता हूं मैं, क्योंकि उनकी एक क्लास जीएस की, एक क्लास ऑप्शनल की होती है जो मार्च में शुरू करें। आपके केस में आपको 11-12 घंटे पढ़ना पड़ेगा। जब आप वो कर रहे हो, एटलीस्ट गिव 5 आवर्स फॉर योर ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट। आप लोगों के ऑप्शनल्स क्या है? पीएसआई, सोशियो, पीएसआई, सोशियो, पीएसआई, सोशियो, 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 पीएसआई, ऐसे कैसे? नो एंथ्रोपोलॉजी, नो ज्योग्राफी, नो हिस्ट्री। चलो, गुड ऑप्शनल। देखो 3 ऑप्शनल्स हैं। पीएसआईआर, अगर देखो आप लोग मेरे छोटे भाई बहन होते, आप मेरे से बोलते भैया आप बता दो, हम वही ले लेंगे, मैं आपको पीएसआईआर, सोशियोलॉजी, एंथ्रोपोलॉजी ही बोलता। रीजन, दीज आर द ऑप्शनल्स व्हिच आर गिविंग हाईएस्ट नंबर ऑफ सिलेक्शन, पीरियड। मैं यहाँ किस लिए आया हूँ? मैं यहाँ इंटरेस्ट बढ़ाने के लिए, बाकी चीजों के लिए नहीं आया हूँ। मैं यहाँ पे सिलेक्शन के लिए आया हूँ। सबसे ज्यादा सिलेक्शंस कहाँ से हो रहे हैं? इन 3 ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट से हो रहे हैं। दैट इज व्हाई आई वुड हैव रिकमेंडेड यू, जो आपने चूज किया है वो ही, सोशियो, पीएसआर। ऑनलाइन वाले बच्चों, एंथ्रो भी है, चलो वो भी अच्छा ही ऑप्शनल है। तो 3 ऑप्शनल, तीनों अच्छे। तो मेक श्योर आज से 5 आवर्स एवरी डे यू विल गिव फॉर योर ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट। 2-2.5 आवर्स की क्लास होगी, 2-2.5 आवर्स की पढ़ाई। नाउ द डाउट दैट यू विल हैव इज, सर ऑप्शनल तो इज ओनली 500 मार्क्स, GS essay are of 1250 marks. Then why are we giving half of the time to optional? And GS essay को मिला के only half of the time, because after January you can continue studying your GS. But because in preliminary examination also GS is coming, but optional नहीं कर पाओगे after January. That is why give half of your time to what? Give half of your time to GS. Oh, optional. तो आपको कम से कम 5 घंटे ऑप्शनल को देने हैं और कम से कम 6 से 7 घंटे जीएस को देने हैं। चलिए बात करते हैं कैसे। आप बोलोगे सर 5 आवर्स की तो क्लास ही हो गई, एग्री, 5 आवर्स की क्लास हो गई। एज अ रूल आपको क्या फॉलो करना है, मंडे टू सैटरडे हर क्लास का कम से कम 45 मिनट्स का रिविजन। वॉट एवर यू आर डूइंग इन क्लास, जस्ट दैट, वॉट एवर नोट्स यू आर गेटिंग, जैसे आज यू मे हैव गॉट सम नोट्स, क्लास में पढ़ाया जाएगा, फोकस से सुनो। आपके पास ना बैठ के रिसर्च करने का समय नहीं है, फुल फोकस से सुनो, समझो, घर जाके 45 मिनट्स उसका रिविजन। सेकेंड क्लास हुई, फोकस से सुनो, समझो, फोकस बढ़ा के रखो, क्योंकि यू डू नॉट हैव टाइम टू डू इट अगेन, स्पेंड अनदर 3 आवर्स, एटलीस्ट 45 मिनट्स का रिविजन। ऑप्शनल में 2.5 आवर्स का रिविजन। व्हाट विल बी द जनरल रूल, 2.5 आवर्स का ऑप्शनल का क्लास है, 2.5 आवर्स का वो होगा। आपको लगता है कि 1.5 आवर में रिविजन हो गया, कोई बात नहीं, फिर जीएस को थोड़ा और टाइम दे देंगे, बट आपको इस पे स्टिक करना पड़ेगा। तो पहला जो डाउट आता है बच्चों को हम हैंडल कैसे करेंगे, एज अ रूल फॉर एवरी क्लास इन जीएस 45 मिनट्स का रिविजन, फॉर एवरी क्लास एवरी क्लास इन ऑप्शनल, जितना टाइम ऑप्शनल को क्लास में दिया है उतना टाइम क्लास के बाद भी दे दो। इफ 2 आवर्स की क्लास हुई है तो 2 आवर्स का टाइम दे दो। डू नॉट रन बिहाइंड हंड्रेड्स ऑफ थिंग्स, जस्ट कोई भी टॉपिक खत्म होता है, लुक एट ऑल इट्स पीवाईक्यूज, आर यू एबल टू आंसर ऑल द पीवाईक्यूज, लिख कर पा रहे हो तो लिखो, नहीं कर पा रहे हो तो डू सम वैल्यू एडिशन विद द हेल्प ऑफ इंटरनेट, विद द हेल्प ऑफ एआई टूल्स एंड ऑल, कि मैं ये वाला आंसर नहीं लिख पा रहा हूँ, मेरे नोट्स में कवर्ड नहीं है, लेट मी जस्ट ऐड दैट। जैसे जैसे सिलेबस कंप्लीट हो रहा है ऑप्शनल में, मेक श्योर दैट यू आर एबल टू आंसर ऑल द पीवाईक्यूज ऑल्सो। आर वी गेटिंग दिस? तो पहले पढ़ना कैसे, क्योंकि क्लासेस आपकी ज्यादा है, पढ़ना कैसे है, पढ़ना ऐसे है। आप कंसिस्टेंटली जनवरी फरवरी तक ये करो, यू विल सी यू आर ऑन द राइट ट्रैक। आप कोशिश ये करोगे ना, आई स्पेंड 2.5 आवर्स इन क्लास, आई स्पेंड अनदर 2.5 आवर्स एट होम फॉर जीएस, इतना तो टाइम नहीं है आपके पास, फिर आप ना एक सब्जेक्ट मिस करना शुरू कर दोगे, एक में परफेक्शन लाने के चक्कर में दूसरा पूरा मिस होता रहेगा, और फिर सब कचरा हो जाएगा। यू विल से पर सर अभी इतनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ही नहीं है कि मैं टेस्ट में अच्छा नहीं कर पा रहा, कोई बात नहीं, एवरी संडे यू विल हैव 2 टेस्ट्स, वन ऑब्जेक्टिव। कैसे करके आओ कि जितना नॉलेज मैं क्लास में ले सकता हूँ, जितना मैं उस 45 मिनट्स के रिवीजन से ले सकता हूँ, उसके बेसिस पे मैं अटेम्प्ट करूंगा। मोर ओवर सैटरडेज विल बी वेरी एफिशिएंट फॉर यू। व्हाई? बिकॉज यू हैव टेस्ट ऑन संडे, सैटरडे को आपकी ऑप्शनल की क्लास होगी नहीं, संडे को टेस्ट होगा, सैटरडे को 2 बजे के बाद बैठ के क्या करोगे, पूरे वीक में जो पढ़ा है उसे रिवाइज करोगे। इज इट मेकिंग सेंस? तो जो रिवीजन नहीं हो पाया है इन द एंटायर वीक, यू विल डू इट ऑन सैटरडे, एंड यू नो एग्जाम से पहले ही सारी पढ़ाई होती है। जो भी मिस हुआ है, जो भी कंफ्यूजन रहा है, जो भी गलतियां हुई हैं, हम उसे कब हैंडल कर लेंगे, सैटरडे को हैंडल कर लेंगे। एंड इवन आफ्टर दैट संडे को टेस्ट खराब हुआ, कोई बात नहीं। देखो अभी मेनी ऑफ आवर स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ लास्ट ईयर फाउंडेशन आर राइटिंग मेंस, मेनी ऑफ दो स्टूडेंट्स वर स्कोरिंग वेरी लो टिल February March। अभी फरवरी मार्च तक उनका परफॉर्मेंस कैसा था, बहुत खराब था, क्योंकि कोई बैच अगस्त में चालू हुआ है, उनकी 2-2 क्लासेस चल रही है, एक ऑप्शनल की क्लास, वो बस पढ़ के, बट उनमें से सिलेक्शन किन बच्चों का हो गया, जो ना कंसिस्टेंटली रिवाइज करते थे 45 मिनट्स 45 मिनट्स 45 मिनट्स, क्योंकि उन्होंने सब पढ़ा हुआ था। इन एट द एंड ऑफ फरवरी और मिड मार्च जब आपका कोर्स खत्म हो जाएगा, क्लासेस खत्म हो जाएंगी, व्हाट विल यू हैव? मुझे पता है क्या पढ़ना है, मुझे आती भी है चीजें, मुझे बस अब रिविजन में लग जाना है। एंड इन दोज 1.5 in those 2 months approximately, they were able to study the same things again so many times कि they were able to clear preliminary examination. तो in your case एक simple rule जो follow करना है, make sure that every class you're revising for 45 minutes, GS वाले यहाँ पे नहीं पे सर, यहाँ पे मेरे को नहीं पता, मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ यहाँ। तो क्या बोल रहा था मैं, हाँ, मेक श्योर 45 मिनट्स जीएस का रिविजन, मेक श्योर एटलीस्ट 1.5 आवर 2 आवर ऑप्शनल का रिविजन, ऑप्शनल को थोड़ा ज्यादा इन डेप्थ जानना है, इन डेप्थ समझना है, इसको फॉलो करेंगे। डोंट वरी अबाउट मार्क्स कम आ रहे ज्यादा आ रहे, कंसिस्टेंटली गिव एवरी संडेज टेस्ट। व्हेन यू विल गिव एवरी संडेज टेस्ट, देखो आपने अब कॉलेज याद होगा आपको, आप सब अभी ग्रेजुएट हुए हो, 2 महीने में जितना नहीं पढ़ते उसमें उतना टेस्ट से एक दिन पहले पढ़ के कर लेते हो। इफ यू विल कीप फॉलोइंग संडेज टेस्ट, कितना भी खराब स्कोर आए, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट, मुझे टेस्ट देना है, कम प्रिपरेशन है कोई बात नहीं, मुझे टेस्ट देना है। व्हेन यू विल मेक दिस रूल, आप सैटरडे को उतना पढ़ लोगे जितना सारे बच्चे वीक में नहीं पढ़ते हैं। इट इज अ कॉम्पिटिशन, वी हैव टू बी अहेड। जो बच्चा सोचता है नहीं नहीं थोड़ा और पढ़ूंगा तो टेस्ट दूंगा, वो कभी वो उसके उसके शेड्यूल में वो सैटरडे आएगा ही नहीं जिस सैटरडे वो सारी चीजें पढ़ लेगा जो पूरे वीक में उसे पढ़नी चाहिए थी। एंड मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, टेस्ट बच्चे बहुत मिस करने लग जाते हैं। वो हमेशा क्यों मिस करते हैं? वो इसलिए मिस करते हैं, थोड़ा और पढ़ लेते हैं फिर ऑनलाइन कर लेंगे बाद में। नहीं, डोंट मिस अ सिंगल टेस्ट, डोंट मिस क्लासेस, क्योंकि आपको ऑनलाइन एक्सेस भी मिला हुआ है। आप सोचते हो बाद में कर लेंगे, बाद में कर लेंगे, बाद में कर, नहीं मत करो। अगर कुछ लोड ज्यादा हो रहा है, कुछ स्किप करने का मन है, पहले बात करो। हम कैसा प्लान करेंगे? कुछ मेंस के 2-4 टॉपिक अभी छोड़ दो, प्री के बाद उसे देख, उस तरीके से प्लान कर लेंगे अगर किसी बच्चे के लिए लोड ज्यादा हो रहा होगा तो। बट डू नॉट डू नॉट डू नॉट स्टार्ट मिसिंग क्लासेस विदाउट स्पीकिंग टू योर मेंटर, विदाउट स्पीकिंग टू मी। क्लासेस जितना मैं आपको प्रॉमिस कर रहा हूं, जो क्लास आप 2.5 आवर्स में यहां करोगे ना, ऑनलाइन बैठ के आप उसमें 4 घंटे लगाओगे, क्योंकि आप बैठोगे, करोगे, फिर कुछ आ जाएगा, चलो एक कॉफी बना लेते हैं, ये कर लेते हैं, वो कर लेते हैं, एंड 2.5 आवर आप सोचोगे अरे मुझे समझ में नहीं आया, मैं कहीं से जाके पढ़ लेती हूँ पहले उसके बारे में। परफेक्शन के चक्कर में यू विल स्पेंड मोर टाइम। आप एक और चीज नोटिस करना, while ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन has penetrated a lot, रैंक 1 से रैंक 10 तक सारे बच्चों ने अपना कोर पढ़ाई कैसे किया है? ऑफलाइन किया है। अब जिनके पास ऑप्शन नहीं है उनको तो ऑनलाइन ही करना होगा, बट ऑफलाइन विल कीप यू डिसिप्लिन्ड, ऑफलाइन विल इंश्योर कि 2.5 आवर्स में वो पढ़ के जा रहे हैं। कोशिश ये करो मेरे को ऑनलाइन वीडियोस देखनी ही नहीं है, जैसे ही मन में रहेगा ना बाद में ऑनलाइन देख ले, आपका कंसंट्रेशन क्लास में कम हो जाता है। क्यों? क्योंकि क्योंकि मन में क्या आता है? मन में ये आता है कि समझ में नहीं आया, कोई बात नहीं, मैं बाद में एक और बार वीडियो देख लूंगा, और फिर ना थोड़ा एटीट्यूड कैजुअल हो जाता है। एंड दैट इज व्हाई, अज्यूम क्या, आपके पास लेक्चर्स है सारे अवेलेबल, मेंस तक आपको सारे लेक्चर्स मिलेंगे, बट आपको क्या अज्यूम करना है? ये आज से 20 साल पहले जैसे क्लासेस चलती थी, जस्ट ऑफलाइन क्लास में पढ़ा है, उसके बाद कोई ऑनलाइन सिस्टम नहीं है कुछ। जैसे मेरा आईआईटी जेईई का कोचिंग जब था, वी डिडंट हैव एन ऑनलाइन का ऑप्शन। क्लास कर रहे हो तो कर रहे हो, मिस किया तो मिस हो गया। फॉलो दैट अप्रोच, उससे ना क्लास में फोकस ज्यादा रहेगा, एंड फिर 45 मिनट्स में रिवीजन पॉसिबल होगा। मैं आपको, आप देखोगे आपका आपका इंट्रोडक्टरी सेशन आई एम रिवॉल्विंग अराउंड हाउ टू हैंडल 3 क्लासेस इन अ डे। व्हाई? बिकॉज इट्स अ डिफिकल्ट थिंग टू डू, वेरी फ्यू स्टूडेंट्स आर एबल टू डू इट। आई वांट ऑल ऑफ यू टू बी डूइंग इट सो दैट आप पूरा प्रिपेयर्ड रहो। ये समझ में आया? दूसरा, आपकी क्लासेस चालू हो रही है, अ, एक चीज जो मैंने अनाउंसमेंट में पहले नहीं बताई थी, वो है यू हैव डेली आंसर राइटिंग का एक इनिशिएटिव। एवरी डे यू विल बी मेड टू राइट एन आंसर, वो इवैल्यूएट होकर आपको मिलती भी है। फोकस ऑन दैट प्रॉपरली। हर संडे के टेस्ट पे फोकस करो, स्टडी मटेरियल सारी चीजें हम प्रोवाइड करेंगे। एवरी टीचर विल टेल यू आपको कोई बुक रेफर करना है कि नहीं। जैसे पॉलिटी में शायद सर बोलेंगे लक्ष्मीकांत रख लेना अपने पास, बट व्हेन यू विल कम टू लेट्स से आर्ट एंड कल्चर, निखिल सर विल नॉट रिकमेंड यू एनी बुक। निखिल सर बोलते हैं अगर किसी बुक में कोई काम की चीज है वो आपके नोट्स में होनी चाहिए ना, वो हमारी जिम्मेदारी होनी चाहिए। ऐसी व्हेन आई विल कम एंड टीच यू, आई विल प्राइमरली डील विथ योर जीएस 3, आई विल नॉट रिकमेंड यू एनी बुक। अगर किसी बुक में कोई काम की चीज है, शुड इट नॉट बी देयर इन योर नोट्स? इट शुड बी देयर इन योर नोट्स। तो क्या स्टडी मटेरियल लेना है, कुछ स्टैंडर्ड बुक लेनी है नहीं लेनी है, हर सब्जेक्ट पे डिसाइड करना। डू नॉट डाइवर्ट योर प्रिपरेशन बेस्ड ऑन व्हाट योर नेबर इज डूइंग। नेबर 10 किताब लेके आ गया होगा, आप भी वो 10 किताब लेके आओगे, दैट इज नॉट गोइंग टू एंश्योर योर सिलेक्शन। ओआरएन के हर रूम में बहुत सारी किताबें रखी हुई हैं, बट 2% बच्चे सिलेक्ट होते हैं। आपको लगेगा इस जगह से बहुत सारे सिलेक्शन होते, नहीं। अरे इस जगह पे जब 30,000 बच्चे रहते हैं, 500 सिलेक्शन हो जाते हैं, पर 30,000 में 500 होना, लाइक 1.6% बच्चे सिलेक्ट हो रहे हैं। तो जस्ट बिकॉज एवरीवन इज डूइंग समथिंग आप वो करोगे इज नॉट द सोल्यूशन। सोल्यूशन इज आप अपना अप्रोच इतना परफेक्टली फॉलो करो कि अगल बगल वाले एनवियस हो जाए, यार हमने तो ये किताब पढ़ रहे, ये किताब पढ़ रहे, तुम ये सब क्यों नहीं पढ़ रहे? तो हमें नहीं पढ़ना, हमें जो बताया जा रहा है हम वो फॉलो करेंगे। यू जस्ट फॉलो द प्रोसेस, we will make sure that you are fully prepared for the exam. I'm not saying I will guarantee 100% selection. I'm saying you are fully prepared for the एग्जाम। एग्जाम थोड़ा सा वैसा तो है ना, बहुत सारे अच्छे बच्चे भी सिलेक्ट नहीं हो पाते हैं, बट यू विल बी फुली प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर एग्जाम, यू विल डू ग्रेट थिंग्स इन लाइफ। यूपीएससी नहीं तो स्टेट पीसीएस एग्जाम, वो आप, क्योंकि आप जब एक बार फुली प्रिपेयर्ड हो जाते हो ना, आप कोई भी एग्जाम आराम से हैंडल कर लेते हो। क्या हमारे सारे बच्चे आईएएस ही बनते हैं? नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। मैं ऐसा बोलूंगा तो झूठ बोलूंगा। बट क्या हमारे वो बच्चे जो सिंसियरली पढ़े हैं, लाइफ में कहीं अच्छी जगह जाते हैं? 100% गारंटी के साथ। तो सिंसियरली अपना सिलेबस कंप्लीट करो, सिंसियरली प्रोसेस फॉलो करो। बिफोर प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन यू विल बी फुली प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर प्रीलिम्स, बिफोर मेंस एग्जामिनेशन यू विल बी फुली प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर मेंस। यू हैव इनफ आंसर राइटिंग, हर रोज आपकी आंसर राइटिंग होगी, संडे को आपके 2 टेस्ट होंगे, फॉलो करो। अब ना एक और चीज होती है, जैसे टुडे यू स्टडीड दिस बुकलेट, क्या मैं देख सकता हूँ? आज आपको ये दिया गया है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड सीलेंट फीचर्स, राइट? ये आपको मान लो आज पढ़ाया जाएगा, बट इफ यू डोंट रिवाइज इट, नो, बाई February when your course would get over, it would appear alien to you कि क्या है, मुझे तो आता ही नहीं है, तो देखा ही नहीं है। इसीलिए ना आपके टेस्ट्स आर आल्सो डिजाइन इन सच अ मैनर दैट विल मेक यू डू मल्टीपल रिवीजन। जैसे आपके ये टेस्ट हो रहे हैं, संडे को टेस्ट हुआ जो आपने इस वीक पढ़ा, नेक्स्ट संडे टेस्ट हुआ उस वीक पढ़ा, उसके नेक्स्ट संडे टेस्ट हुआ जो थर्ड वीक में पढ़ा। बट ना जब ये पोर्शन कंप्लीट हो रहा होगा ना पॉलिटी, मान लो 5-6 वीक में पॉलिटी का पोर्शन कंप्लीट होता है, इन दैट केस व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन? In that case, we'll take a full test, which will be about what? Which will be about whole syllabus. तो आपने डेली से रिवाइज किया, 45 मिनट्स रिवाइज कर रहे हो, आप सैटरडे को रिवाइज करोगे बिफोर संडे टेस्ट, वो आपका दूसरा रिवीजन हुआ। आपने क्लास में से कवर किया, घर पे जाके रिवाइज किया, सैटरडे को फिर से रिवाइज किया, दूसरा रिवीजन। जब ये पोर्शन कंप्लीट होगा, यू विल हैव अ, लेट्स से 45 डेज के बाद, विल यू हैव अ टेस्ट? यस, उसमें फुल सिलेबस टेस्ट होगा। आप तीसरी बार रिवाइज कर रहे हो, 3 बार रिवाइज तो इन नेक्स्ट 2 मंथ्स आप इसे कर लोगे, बट दैट्स नॉट गुड इनफ। 2 महीने बाद भी रिवाइज किया, फरवरी में आप उसे भूल जाओगे। मान लो पॉलिटी के बाद वी स्टार्ट ज्योग्राफी, ज्योग्राफी में सेम प्रोसेस चलेगा, बट ना एट द एंड ऑफ ज्योग्राफी यू विल हैव अ फुल ज्योग्राफी टेस्ट टू मेक यू रिवाइज थिंग्स देयर, बट देन यू विल आल्सो हैव अ फुल पॉलिटी एंड ज्योग्राफी टेस्ट। दोबारा से रिवाइज करो, भूलने नहीं देना है। थर्ड सब्जेक्ट कंप्लीट होगा, थर्ड सब्जेक्ट का टेस्ट होगा, बट देन जो पढ़ा है पूरा पढ़ो। और वो तब पॉसिबल होगा व्हेन यू आर एवरी डे 45 मिनट्स रिवीजन कर रहे हो, तब आप जाके सैटरडे को उसे दोबारा रिवाइज कर सकते हो, तब आप जाके 3 महीने बाद उसे दोबारा कर सकते हो फटाफट। थर्ड मंथ में यू शुड हैव रेड इट लाइक 4-5 टाइम्स। सब आता है मुझे इसमें। तो प्रोग्राम इज डिजाइंड इन सच अ मैनर। जनरली जब फाउंडेशन बच्चा शुरू करता है, उसके आंसर राइटिंग पे फोकस नहीं होता है, तो बच्चा प्री क्लियर भी कर लेता है ना, वो फर्स्ट टाइम में मेंस क्लियर करने का स्कोर, इसलिए फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में मेंस क्लियर करने वाले बच्चे बहुत कम होते हैं। वी डोंट वांट दैट सिचुएशन फॉर यू पीपल, इसलिए आंसर राइटिंग पे फर्स्ट डे से, फर्स्ट वीक से फोकस है। आपका क्या पहला टेस्ट होगा जिसमें आंसर राइटिंग आएगी? यस। छोटा टेस्ट होगा, 6-7 क्वेश्चन का ही होगा, बट वी वांट टू मेक यू राइट आंसर्स राइट फ्रॉम द बिगनिंग, राइट शिटी आंसर्स, नो प्रॉब्लम। Your first answer should be right now, your shitty answer should be right now, so that थोड़ा 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 भी इंप्रूवमेंट करके इवेंचुअली यू विल बी राइटिंग परफेक्ट आंसर्स। ऐसे सोचो, आप एक आंसर लिखते हो, आपका क्या नाम है? प्रियंका एक आंसर लिखती है आज, और प्रियंका के आंसर में ना 50 गलतियां हैं, एंड शी इज गेटिंग ओनली 1 आउट ऑफ 10, है ना? प्रियंका इज राइटिंग सच अ बुलशिट आंसर, बट हमारे पास 50 वीक है, हर वीक में अगर एक गलती भी कम करेंगे, इन 50 वीक्स कैन शी राइट अ वेरी गुड आंसर? इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है? हर वीक में एक छोटा सा इंप्रूवमेंट करना। यू विल थिंक कि फर्स्ट डे ही आप क्या करो, एकदम बढ़िया आंसर लिख दो, नहीं लिख पाओगे, कोई बात नहीं। इंपॉर्टेंट क्या होगा? कीप ऑन इंप्रूविंग, कीप ऑन मेकिंग स्मॉल इंप्रूवमेंट। दो स्मॉल इंप्रूवमेंट में नॉट इवन बी विजिबल टू यू, बट यू आर इंप्रूविंग। तो कंसिस्टेंसी, प्रोसेस को फॉलो करो, पूरे प्रोसेस में वी विल मेक श्योर आपका पूरा सिलेबस कंप्लीट है, वी विल मेक श्योर यू आर रेडी फॉर एग्जाम। आपको कोई भी दिक्कत हो रही है, यू कैन सेंड मी अ मैसेज, व्हाट्सएप मैसेज करिए। आप आपने ऑफिस में कोई रिक्वेस्ट किया है, वो फुलफिल नहीं हो रहा है 24 आवर्स के अंदर, आपके मेंटर से आप बात नहीं कर पा रहे हो, कोई भी कंप्लेन है, कोई भी कंसर्न है, यू कैन मैसेज इट टू मी। हमारे यहाँ अराउंड 6000 स्टूडेंट्स पढ़ रहे हैं, एवरीवन हैज माय नंबर। रीजन क्या है? रीजन सिंपल है कि द एंटायर इंस्टीट्यूशन शुड नो दैट माय स्टूडेंट्स कैन रीच मी डायरेक्टली। so that they are serving you properly. The services for which you are here, that should be given to you in the right manner. तो कोई भी प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, मुझसे मिल लीजिए, मुझसे बात करिए। मेरी बहुत सारी क्लासेस होती है, तो कई बार मैं रिप्लाई नहीं कर पाता, उस पे ये अज़्यूम मत करना कि सर हमें रिप्लाई नहीं कर 24 आवर्स बाद दोबारा मैसेज कर लीजिए। ट्राई टू फाइंड कि सर मेरे को मिलना है, कितने बजे आ जाओ मिलने। जनरली शाम को अगर आप पास में रहते हो, मेरी क्लासेस 7:38 खत्म होती हैं, उसके बाद मैं अवेलेबल रहता हूँ 1 घंटे। उस दिन मिल लेंगे। सैटरडे संडे यू विल बी मीटिंग मी। सैटरडे संडे आपकी करंट अफेयर्स की क्लासेस होंगी। आई विल बी टेकिंग योर करंट अफेयर्स क्लास। हम उसके बाद भी मिल सकते हैं, हम उसके बाद भी बातें कर सकते हैं। कोई भी कंसर्न होगा, कोई भी इश्यू होगा, वी विल केटर टू इट, है ना? आपने क्या इंट्रोडक्टरी वीडियो देखा था इस प्रोग्राम का, जो मैंने अभी 3-4 दिन पहले बनाया है, व्हाट दिस प्रोग्राम इज एंड ऑल? एक बार वो भी देखिएगा। अ, मैंने आपको बोला है, आप कोई भी कोर्स किसी भी तरह का कहीं जॉइन नहीं करेंगे अदर देन ऑप्शनल। आप लोगों के ऑप्शनल्स अलग-अलग हो सकते हैं। अदर देन ऑप्शनल, आप कोई भी कोर्स कहीं और जॉइन नहीं करोगे। सब कुछ जो तैयारी के लिए चाहिए, चाहे सीसैट है, चाहे एसए है, चाहे करंट अफेयर्स प्रोग्राम है, चाहे डेली आंसर राइटिंग है, चाहे वीकली टेस्ट है, चाहे प्रीलिम्स टेस्ट सीरीज है, चाहे मेंस टेस्ट सीरीज है। जनवरी से आपका क्या होगा? आपका हर रोज 50 क्वेश्चन का टेस्ट होगा। जनवरी से जब हम प्रीलिम्स मोड में जाएंगे ना, यू विल हैव अ 50 क्वेश्चन टेस्ट एवरी डे। दैट्स आल्सो इंक्लूडेड इन दिस प्रोग्राम। नवंबर दिसंबर से ना कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट विल ट्राई टू गेट यू कि आ जाओ हमारे यहाँ टेस्ट सीरीज ज्वाइन कर लो, ये वो। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, सब कुछ आपके प्रोग्राम में ऑलरेडी है। प्री के बाद आपका डेली आंसर राइटिंग 4-5 क्वेश्चन का, अभी 1 क्वेश्चन का है। प्री के बाद वो 4-5 क्वेश्चन का हो जाएगा। हर संडे को आपको टेस्ट है, मेंस का टेस्ट है, एसए का टेस्ट है। तो प्रीलिम्स टेस्ट सीरीज, मेंस टेस्ट सीरीज, डेली 50 क्वेश्चन का टेस्ट, सब कुछ इस प्रोग्राम का पार्ट है। यू विल बी एबल टू यूज इट प्रोवाइडेड यू आर डिसिप्लिन्ड, यू आर फोकस्ड। आप एक ही चीज को बार-बार पढ़ रहे हो रादर देन हंड्रेड्स ऑफ थिंग्स लेके रखना और फिर किसी को भी अच्छे से नहीं पढ़ पाना। तो जो आपको हैंडआउट्स मिल रहे हैं, जैसे पॉलिटी के केस में शायद आप लक्ष्मीकांत भी ले लीजिए, दैट्स अ स्टैंडर्ड सोर्स दैट यू शुड हैव। बाकी कोई और किताब नहीं लोगे। अभी क्या लेना है? सिर्फ और सिर्फ लक्ष्मीकांत, नथिंग एल्स। एक इसके अलावा आई थिंक ज्योग्राफी वाले सर आपको एनसीईआरटी लेने को बोलेंगे, और हिस्ट्री, मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री के केस में भी आई विल रिकमेंड यू कि एक एनसीईआरटी ले लेना। दैट्स इट। उसके अलावा, इन 3 चीजों के अलावा यू विल नॉट बाय एनी बुक, एनीथिंग एल्स। आप अपने क्लास नोट्स बार-बार, 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 बार-बार रिवाइज जब मौका मिलेगा। पर क्या सब आता है मुझे? फर्स्ट टाइम में यू मे अब्सॉर्ब ओनली 30%, सेकंड टाइम में 35%, थर्ड टाइम में 50%, 60%। इवेंचुअली यू विल नो इट सो वेल दैट यू विल बी इन अ पोजीशन टू क्लियर दिस एग्जामिनेशन। ठीक है? अब आपके डाउट्स, आप कुछ पूछना चाह रहे थे? यस। हाँ, तो देखो उसमें ना सिंपल सा रूल क्या फॉलो करना है। आई विल इट्स अ 2 आवर क्लास, आई एम गोइंग टू डू इट इन 2 आवर ओनली। चाहे कुछ भी हो जाएगा, मैं यहां से हिलूंगी नहीं। यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? जैसे इनके केस में क्या है, शी इज आल्सो टेकिंग सोशियोलॉजी, और सोशियोलॉजी सुबह, अच्छा शी इज आल्सो टेकिंग पीएसए, यू आर फ्रॉम सोशियोलॉजी, तो इनकी सोशियोलॉजी की सुबह 8 बजे से क्लास होगी और 8 बजे से आपकी भी क्लास हो सकती है। तो हमने ना इन बच्चों के लिए क्या किया है, जनरली हम सोशियोलॉजी के लिए हाइब्रिड एक्सेस नहीं देते हैं। ऑफलाइन और ऑनलाइन दोनों एक्सेस नहीं मिलता, बट जो हमारे बच्चे हैं जीएस में, जिनका क्लास ओवरलैप हो रहा है, उनको हमने सोशियोलॉजी के लिए भी हाइब्रिड एक्सेस दिया है। दैट इज दे कैन वॉच इट ऑनलाइन और दे कैन वॉच इट ऑफलाइन। तो उस केस में आप क्या रूल रखो कि यार मैं घर जाऊंगी और ये मेरा टाइमिंग है क्लास का। मान लो आप एक टाइम फिक्स कर लेते हो, 4 to 6 PM। मेरे को इसी पीरियड में वो खत्म करना है, मैं इस पीरियड में हिलने वाली नहीं। उसका कोई और कोई अल्टरनेटिव सॉल्यूशन है नहीं, बिकॉज़ वी हैव क्लासेस शेड्यूल्ड फॉर द होल डे, तो हम और किसी टाइम पे क्लास रख नहीं सकते थे। हुँ। नहीं, नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। अब एक क्लास पॉलिटी की होगी, दूसरी क्लास तो दूसरे सब्जेक्ट की होगी ना। यू हैव ओनली बोथ द बोथ। अच्छा, आपकी 2 क्लासेस चल रही है पहले? हाँ, तो आर यू श्योर? फर्स्ट फर्स्ट मंथ में यू ओनली हैव पॉलिटी क्लासेस। हाँ, तब तो इंटरलिंक्ड होगा, यस। तब तो इंटरलिंक्ड होगा, क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं होगा ना कि दोनों क्लासेस एकदम अलग-अलग सब्जेक्ट पे चल रही है, उसका ही कंटिन्यूएशन। राइट। तो उस केस में आप क्या करेंगे, मतलब आप जैसे फॉर दिस पीरियड यू डू सोशियो ऑनलाइन, बट कैसे करना है, वो 2 घंटे ना वहां बैठ जाना है। मैं हिलने वाली नहीं हूँ। घर पे कोई कुछ भी बोले, दोस्त कोई आके बोले चल चाय पी के आते हैं, नहीं। these 2 hours as if I'm sitting in the offline class and I'm doing it. That's the क्या ऑनलाइन पढ़ के बच्चे सिलेक्ट होते हैं? होते हैं, बहुत सारे बच्चे होते हैं। अभी हमारा एक स्टूडेंट है तरुण यादव, रैंक 49। ही हैज डन ऑलमोस्ट हिज एंटायर प्रिपरेशन बाय सेल्फ स्टडी। वो बस पिछले 3 साल से मेरे करंट अफेयर्स प्रोग्राम में रेगुलरली एनरोल्ड था और हिस्ट्री के लिए आर्ट एंड कल्चर वाले मॉड्यूल में वो हमारे बस इन्हीं कोर्सेज में था। उसने सारी पढ़ाई ऑनलाइन करी है। हुआ है सिलेक्शन? यस हुआ है। आई एम नॉट सेइंग ऑनलाइन पढ़ के सिलेक्शन नहीं होता है। होता है, बट व्हाट इज मोर सुटेबल फॉर प्रिपरेशन? व्हाट इज मोर सुटेबल फॉर क्लासेस? ऑफलाइन वाला सिस्टम इज मोर सुटेबल बिकॉज यहां पे 2.5 आवर्स की क्लास आप 2.5 आवर्स में करके जाओगे। यू डोंट हैव एन ऑप्शन। आप मेरी क्लास में बीच में उठ रहे होगे, मैं बोलूंगा कहां जा रही हो, क्यों जा रही हो, बैठो। तो ना आप अनलेस इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट आप कॉल भी नहीं उठाओगे। वेरएस पढ़ाई में बोर हो रहे हो या क्या पढ़ा रहे हो समझ में भी नहीं आ रहा, किसी का भी कॉल आया आप उठा के बात करने लग जाओगे। समझ में नहीं भी आ रहा तब भी बैठो, उस प्रोसेस को कंप्लीट करो। ऐसा होगा क्या? ऐसा होगा किसी क्लास में समझ में नहीं आ रहा, कोई क्लास बोर हो रही है? डेफिनेटली होगा। और ये वाला वो फेज होता है जब आपकी पढ़ाई ब्रेक हो जाती है। कहां पे? ऑनलाइन क्लास में। एंड दैट इज व्हाई ऑफलाइन इज मोर सुटेबल फॉर क्लासेस। मैं शुरू में मेरे को लगता था ऑनलाइन इज मोर सुटेबल, बच्चा अपने पेस पे देख लेगा, ये कर लेगा, वो कर लेगा। मेरे को रियलाइज हो गया है वो ना 1 महीने की कोई क्लास होती है, वो होता है उसके लिए वो ठीक है। बट जहां पे आपको 1.5 साल पढ़ना है, वहां पे ना यू गेट डाइवर्टेड, फिर सिलेबस लैग करने लगता है एंड इन द एंड यू आर नॉट एबल टू डू इट। जो ऑनलाइन बच्चे हैं वो अभी ऑलरेडी उनके रिक्वेस्ट आने लगे, सर हमारा कोर्स लास्ट ईयर का कोर्स अभी मेंस में खत्म हो जाएगा। सर मेरा कोर्स तो खत्म हो रहा है बट आई वांट वीडियो का एक्सेस आगे भी। देयर आर 200 वीडियोस व्हिच आई हैवंट वॉच्ड। 6 महीने पीछे चल रहे हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि दे वर डूइंग इट एट देयर ओन पेस। क्या उनका प्रीलिम्स क्लियर हुआ होगा? नहीं, हो ही नहीं सकता। व्हेन यू हैव नॉट डन 200 क्लासेस तो प्रीलिम्स क्लियर नहीं हुआ होगा। तो जो भी ऑनलाइन कर रहे हो डिसिप्लिन के साथ करो। ये मेरे क्लासरूम का टाइम है, मुझे वहां पे स्टिक करना है। आर वी गेटिंग इट? और मैं फिर से आखिरी में बोल रहा हूं, डू नॉट मेक योर प्रिपरेशन एज पर योर नेबर्स प्रिपरेशन। बिकॉज हर जगह फाउंडेशन में ना इतना फोकस मेंस पे नहीं है, तो बच्चे मेंस के लिए कुछ कुछ करने लगते हैं। आपके यहाँ बहुत सारा फोकस मेंस पे। आप सैटरडे को करंट अफेयर्स क्लास में आओगे, आप देखोगे मैं तो वहां करंट अफेयर्स क्वेश्चन आंसर फॉर्मेट पे पढ़ा रहा हूँ। इंट्रोडक्शन ऐसे लिखोगे, मेन बॉडी ऐसे लिखोगे, कंक्लूजन ऐसे लिखो, है ना? अभी देखो आपका नेक्स्ट एक वीक जो जो बच्चे सोशो में एडमिशन है, कितने लोग आप में यहाँ पे सोशो में है? आप लोग सोशो में हैं? जिन लोगों ने सोशो में एडमिशन लिया, आपकी नेक्स्ट एक वीक क्लास नहीं है अभी? हाँ, इस वीक नहीं है। प्लीज ट्राई टू इंश्योर दिस कि जो मैंने ना करंट अफेयर्स जून से पढ़ाना शुरू किया है। 1 साल पहले से शुरू करते ना, आप वो पुरानी वाली क्लासेस कंप्लीट कर ले रहे हो। जो लोग नहीं कर पा रहे कोई बात नहीं, आगे की करंट अफेयर्स आर नॉट कनेक्टेड टू प्रीवियस टॉपिक। बट जिन लोगों के पास स्कोप है, जिनके पास अभी टाइम है, अभी 8-9 क्लासेस हुई हैं इन लास्ट 4 वीक्स। वो 8 क्लासेस आप करंट अफेयर्स की कंप्लीट कर लो सो दैट अब देखो विक्रम लॉन्च हुआ, मैंने विक्रम के बारे में पिछली क्लास में पढ़ाया है। प्राइवेटाइजेशन वाला टॉपिक, गगनयान न्यूज़ में तो मैंने गगनयान बहुत सारा पढ़ाया है। इंडिया यूएस रिलेशन न्यूज़ में था तो पढ़ाया है। वो क्या आपको पढ़ाया जाएगा यहाँ पे वापस साइंस में? हाँ। क्या आपको आईआर में वो वाले टॉपिक्स दोबारा पढ़ाए जाएँगे? हाँ। बट जो अभी चल रहा है न्यूज़ में, वो पिछले 8 वीक वाले अगर हम पढ़ के रख लें तो दैट विल बी अ गुड थिंग टू डू। एंड दैट इज़ व्हाई व्हाट शुड यू डू? जिनके पास समय है, वो भी पुरानी करंट अफेयर्स की क्लासेस देख ले, डू नॉट वेस्ट योर टाइम। जिनके पास समय नहीं है, जिनकी ऑलरेडी 3 क्लासेस चल रही हैं, वो ये वाला स्ट्रैटेजी फॉलो करेंगे। जीएस 45 मिनट्स, जीएस क्लास 2 45 मिनट्स, ऑप्शनल एट लीस्ट 1 एंड अ हाफ आवर्स। ये वाला प्रोसेस हम फॉलो करेंगे। तो अगर ना बहुत टेक्निकली जाऊँ मैं तो जीएस की 2.5 आवर्स क्लासेस, 2.5 आवर क्लासेस, 45 मिनट्स एंड ऑप्शनल की लेट्स से 2.5 आवर्स क्लासेस एंड 1.5 आवर्स का इसका रिवीजन। तो आपको रफली 7.5 आवर्स यहाँ, 1.5 आवर्स यहाँ, 1.5 आवर्स यहाँ, आपको 10.5 आवर्स पढ़ाई करनी है। Now your doubt would be, sir, what about current affairs? What about reading newspaper daily? है ना? आपको 45 मिनट्स न्यूज़पेपर पे बिताने हैं, नॉट मोर देन दैट। कब बिताने हैं? देखो, जैसे ना आप क्लास के बीच में ब्रेक पे हो, कुछ वैसा है। आप न्यूज़पेपर अपना लेके रखो, बीच में न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ो, देखो क्या चल रहा है वर्ल्ड में। आप ट्रैवल कर रहे हो, आप न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ो। वैसे तो यहाँ पे भी आप टाइम निकाल सकते हो, बट ना अभी न्यूज़पेपर को बस अवेयरनेस के लिए जानना है, उसको स्टडी नहीं करना है। जब आपका पॉलिटी पूरा खत्म हो जाएगा ना, तो पॉलिटी का कोई आर्टिकल आ रहा है तो उसे स्टडी करना है एंड उससे एक लाइन उठा के अपने नोट्स में डालनी है। अभी वैसा कुछ नहीं करना है। अभी यू हैव टू स्पेंड 45 मिनट्स, और जिस दिन न्यूज़पेपर नहीं पढ़ पा रहे हो, सपोज समय नहीं है, एक ना ऑल इंडिया रेडियो की न्यूज आती है, न्यूज एट 9। आप ऑल इंडिया रेडियो के वेबसाइट पे जाओगे, 9 बजे उनकी 15 मिनट की न्यूज बुलेटिन आती है। उसको सुबह वॉशरूम में जब बैठे हो, फ़ोन पे ईयरफ़ोन लगाना, वो 15 मिनट की न्यूज़ सुन लेना, सो दैट यू हैव जनरल अवेयरनेस ऑफ व्हाट इज़ गोइंग ऑन इन द वर्ल्ड। एट लीस्ट हर रोज़ 15 मिनट ये करना है। अगर इफ यू कैन नॉट गिव 45 मिनट्स फॉर रीडिंग न्यूज़पेपर, क्या करना है? 15 मिनट्स ऑल इंडिया रेडियो न्यूज़ का रात के 9 बजे का न्यूज़ बुलेटिन सुनना है। और वो एग्ज़ैक्टली रात के 9 बजे नहीं, आप मान लो 12 बजे सोने जा रहे हो एंड यू रियलाइज़, अरे यार! आज का तो न्यूज़पेपर रह गया। कोई बात नहीं। व्हाट विल आई डू? मैं जब लेटने जा रहा हूँ, मैं फ़ोन खोलूँगा, ऑल इंडिया रेडियो का उस दिन का 9 बजे का बुलेटिन सुन लूँगा कि चलो ठीक है, इतना, ये काफ़ी है। डोंट मिस अ सिंगल टेस्ट एंड यू विल सी दैट यू आर फुली प्रिपेयर्ड। अभी न्यूज़पेपर को इतना स्ट्रेस नहीं देना है। पहले बेसिक्स समझो, तो जब आपको गवर्नर कैसे काम करता है, तो गवर्नर का न्यूज़ रेलेवेंट लगेगा और आपको लगेगा अच्छा ये तो सब मुझे आता ही है। क्या नहीं आता? अच्छा ये वाला एक अलग से कोट आया है, ये तो आई कैन यूज़ इन माय कंक्लूजन। लेट मी जस्ट ऐड दिस इन माय नोट्स। यू विल नीड टू ऐड 1 और 2 लाइन इन योर नोट्स फ्रॉम न्यूज़पेपर। अदरवाइज़ अभी जब गवर्नर के नोट्स बनाने लग जाओगे ना, यू डू नॉट नो एनीथिंग अबाउट गवर्नर। आपको लगेगा ये भी इम्पोर्टेंट, ये भी इम्पोर्टेंट, ये भी, एंड यू विल मेक एंट वो पूरा आर्टिकल आप कॉपी कर लोगे, व्हिच इज़ ऑफ नो पर्पज़, क्योंकि वो सारी चीज़ें आप ऑलरेडी पढ़ चुके हो। इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं करना है। बहुत सारी किताबें नहीं खरीदनी है, अपने रूम को किताबों से नहीं भर देना है। मैंने आपको बोला लक्ष्मीकांत, ज्योग्राफी वाले सर, हमने ज्योग्राफी के जो आपको नोट्स प्रोवाइड करते हैं उसमें ज्योग्राफी एनसीईआरटी पूरा डाल दिया है। फिर भी ज्योग्राफी वाले सर इंसिस्ट करते हैं क्या? एनसीईआरटी, पर ज्योग्राफी एनसीईआरटी का एक भी पॉइंट हमने आपके नोट्स में नहीं छोड़ा है। जो स्टडी मटेरियल आपको ज्योग्राफी का मिलेगा, फिर भी ज्योग्राफी वाले सर इंसिस्ट करते हैं ज्योग्राफी एनसीईआरटी लेना। 11th-12th की ज्योग्राफी एनसीईआरटी ले लेना और एक मॉडर्न इंडिया की बुक ले लेना। है ना? एक मॉडर्न इंडिया की बिपिन चंद्रा की किताब आती है, मॉडर्न इंडिया, जो 1750 से शुरू होती है और 1947 पे खत्म होती है, वो ले लेना। इन 3 किताबों के अलावा आप कोई किताब नहीं लोगे। बाकी सारी पढ़ाई नोट से होगी। 100 किताबों के पीछे भागने से हमारी प्रिपरेशन खराब होती है। एक बार सब्जेक्ट्स पूरे होने लगे तो न्यूज़पेपर को थोड़ा और ध्यान से पढ़ने लगेंगे, करने लगेंगे। टाइम कम है, फॉलो दिस। 45 मिनट्स, 1.5 आवर्स, ये 10 पॉइंट क्या 10.5 आवर्स क्लास को इंक्लूड करके एक दिन में पढ़ सकते हो? पढ़ सकते हो, पर पढ़ोगे पढ़ेंगे बहुत कम बच्चे। पढ़ेंगे वही जो सिलेक्शन के पास पहुँचेंगे। अदरवाइज़ मोस्ट ऑफ द बच्चे यहाँ पे टाइम बर्बाद करते हैं, नहीं पढ़ते हैं। प्लीज़ फॉलो दिस फ्रॉम डे 1 एंड यू विल सी लाइफ बहुत अच्छी चल रही है। आज की क्लास 45 मिनट्स है, क्लॉक स्टार्ट किया, 45 मिनट्स में मैं ध्यान से रिवाइज़ करूँगा। 45 मिनट्स डन, रोक लेते हैं, अगले सब्जेक्ट पे जाएँगे। कम से कम 6 आवर्स सोना है, कम से कम, और रात में 12 बजे से 6 बजे तक, 11 बजे से 5 बजे तक, 10 बजे से 4 बजे तक, व्हाटएवर इज़ योर शेड्यूल, कम से कम 6 आवर्स सोना है। कम से कम 45 मिनट्स एक्सरसाइज करनी है। अब 45 मिनट्स एक्सरसाइज कैन हैपन इन मेनी वेज़। जैसे यू आर कमिंग फ्रॉम क्लास, गोइंग फ्रॉम क्लास, आपने 15 मिनट वॉक कर लिया है, तो ठीक है, 30 मिनट्स बाकी बाकी है, 30 मिनट्स में पार्क में जाके थोड़ी एक्सरसाइज करूँगा। तो 6 आवर्स ऑफ स्लीपिंग एट लीस्ट, बट कोई, सम ऑफ यू मे बी कंफर्टेबल विथ, सर मुझे तो 7 आवर्स चाहिए। ले लो 7 आवर्स। 24 आवर्स में 7 आवर्स निकाल भी दोगे तब भी यू आर लेफ्ट विथ 17 आवर्स। मैं तो यहाँ पे 11-12 घंटे ले रहा हूँ, 6 घंटे बाकी काम करने के लिए काफ़ी है। टाइम आपके पास काफ़ी है। 1-2 चीज़ जो अवॉइड करो वो ये है, 1, डू नॉट स्टार्ट कुकिंग फूड। कई बच्चे क्या करते हैं ना, मुझे कुक का खाना पसंद नहीं आ रहा, मुझे टिफ़िन का खाना पसंद नहीं आ रहा, मैं खुद ही खाना बनाऊँगा। नहीं, इतना समय नहीं है। फिर 2 ईयर का साइकिल हो जाएगा। हमें फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में एग्ज़ाम क्लियर करना है। डू नॉट स्टार्ट कुकिंग फूड, डू नॉट स्टार्ट वॉशिंग क्लोथ्स। ये सब करना शुरू मत करो। मेड ₹300 लेती है 1 महीने की, वो थोड़े कपड़े अच्छे से नहीं धुलेंगे, कोई बात नहीं। थोड़े दिन कम धुले हुए कपड़े पहन लेंगे, है ना? खाना क्या बना दिया है, वही अजीब-सी पानी वाली दाल बना रखी है, सब्जी में इतना ऑयल क्यों है, आई कैन नॉट ईट इट, कोई बात नहीं, खा लेंगे। अगले 1 एंड हाफ ईयर्स ये कर लेंगे। इस चक्कर में ना रोज़ 1 घंटा खाना बनाने में, आधा घंटा धोने में, कपड़े धोने में, इन सब में बर्बाद नहीं करना है। दिल्ली, आप में से कई लोग दिल्ली पहली बार आए होंगे एंड यू विल बी वेरी एक्साइटेड। कैसे एक्साइटेड? दिल्ली आए हैं, यहां घूमेंगे, वो करेंगे, कुछ नहीं करना है। आपका ब्रेक एक वीक में एक बार है, संडे को आफ्टर 5 पीएम। अदरवाइज यू डू नॉट हैव ब्रेक्स। संडे को आफ्टर 5 पीएम, 5 पीएम से 10 पीएम, 11 पीएम और 12 मिडनाइट, जब भी आप सोते हो, दैट इज योर ब्रेक टाइम। उस टाइम आप वो करोगे जो आपको पसंद है। सपोज यू लाइक वॉचिंग मूवी, गो एंड वॉच अ मूवी। सपोज यू लाइक रनिंग, आप रोज थोड़ा बहुत एक्सरसाइज कर रहे हो, उस दिन आपको जाके 20 किलोमीटर भागना है, भागो। है ना? आपको अपने गर्लफ्रेंड से, बॉयफ्रेंड से फोन पे 2 घंटे बात करने, रोज 5-10 मिनट बात कर लो। किस दिन करोगे? संडे को। अदरवाइज नेक्स्ट ईयर भी हमें फीस दे देना। अगर आप देखो, सिंपल सा बात है, अगर आप सिंसियरली पढ़ाई नहीं कर रहे हो, आप ओआरएन में जाओगे, कोई आपको बोलेगा मैं 3 साल से हूँ, मैं 4 साल से हूँ, मैं 5 साल से हूँ, वो क्यों यहाँ है? आप उनका डेली शेड्यूल देख लेना, आपको पता लग जाएगा। ज्ञान देने में एक्सपर्ट्स रहेंगे, किसमें एक्सपर्ट्स नहीं रहेंगे? डिसिप्लिन बैठ के पढ़ाई करने में। अगर यू वांट टू बी समवन जो इसी साल सेलेक्ट होना चाहता है, आपको एकदम डिसिप्लिन होके काम करना पड़ेगा। मैं आपको सारे ना पिटफॉल्स पहले से ही बता रहा हूँ। आपको लगेगा आपके फ्लैट में कोई बच्चा है जो थर्ड अटेम्प्ट दे रहा है, पिछली बार मेंस भी दे के आया है, वो आपको बहुत गाइड कर देंगे। आप उनका डेली शेड्यूल देखना, अगर वो डिसिप्लिन नहीं है, उनसे गाइडेंस लेनी ही नहीं है, क्योंकि ही विल डू दिस, चल चाय पी के आते हैं, वहां पे बात करूंगा मैं तेरे साथ। उन सब में ना बहुत समय जाता है। आपके पास टीचर है, आपके पास मेंटर है, आपके पास मैं हूं। कंसिडर मी योर एल्डर ब्रदर। बिना टेंशन के आप मुझे मैसेज कर सकते हो, और मैसेज रिप्लाई ना करूं तो ये मत सोचना कि सर रिप्लाई नहीं करना चाह रहे, ये सोच लेना क्लास होगी, मैं एक दिन बाद दोबारा मैसेज करूंगा। आर वी गेटिंग इट? पूरा प्रोसेस फॉलो करो। डू नॉट गेट डाइवर्टेड। बी इन द लूप, बी इन द प्रोसेस, नो मैटर आप पीछे जा रहे हो, परफॉर्मेंस खराब हो रही है, कोई बात नहीं। जब वो प्रोसेस पूरा करोगे ना, आपको दिखेगा कि यू आर एट द राइट प्लेस। रास्ते में कई बार हमें लगता है यार, पता नहीं मैं विल आई बी एबल टू रीच द डेस्टिनेशन और नॉट, बट हमने बहुत एक्सपीरियंस के बाद, बहुत एफर्ट्स के बाद ये पूरा प्रोसेस तैयार किया है, एंड दिस शुड बी इनफ फॉर यू टू क्लियर दिस एग्जामिनेशन। ओके, चलिए, और भी कोई डाउट हो तो पूछ लीजिए। I'll ask बाबू सर टू कम एंड स्टार्ट टेकिंग क्लासेस फॉर पॉलिटी। मेरे को वैसे भी 15 मिनट मिले थे, मैंने 40 मिनट ले लिए, 50 मिनट ले लिया। ठीक है? कोई और डाउट, कोई और कंसर्न, इन जनरल प्रिपरेशन से रिलेटेड कोई भी कंसर्न हो? हाँ, एवरी डे। ओके, 8 to 10:30। हाँ, 8 to 10:30, फिर 11 से। यस। कहाँ कहाँ पे है ऑप्शनल क्लास? कौन सा क्लास है? पीएसआईआर? बट व्हाई नॉट फ्रॉम शुभ्रा मैम? अच्छा, ठीक है। अच्छा, देखो सिंपल सा एक चीज समझाते हैं। शुभ्रा मैम इज द बेस्ट पीएसआईआर टीचर इन द कंट्री। जैसे करण सर इज द बेस्ट एंथ्रोपोलॉजी टीचर इन द कंट्री, निषाद सर इज द बेस्ट सोशियोलॉजी टीचर इन द कंट्री, ऐसे ही शुभ्रा मैम वो हमारे यहाँ नहीं पढ़ाती। तो ऐसा मत सोचना कि मैं अपने इंस्टीट्यूशन को प्रमोट कर रहा हूँ। शुभ्रा मैम इज द बेस्ट पेसायर टीचर इन द कंट्री। ये जो नए नए ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म्स आ गए ना, जिनको सिविल सर्विसेज का कोई आइडिया नहीं है, डू नॉट फॉल इन देयर ट्रैप। है ना? कमिंग टू योर प्रॉब्लम, आप 8 to 10:30 अपनी क्लास करो। आप आपकी 12 बजे क्लास कहाँ, यहीं ओआरएन में कहीं होगी? हाँ, ठीक है, हाँ, तिवारी हाउस सामने ही है ना? 11 to 11:40 भी यहाँ पे क्लास करो। 11:40 पे निकल जाओ यहाँ से। क्यों नहीं जाने देंगे? नहीं, नहीं, वो तो आप मुझे बता दोगे ना कि सर मेरी ना वहाँ पे क्लास है, तो मैं ये छोड़ दूँगी और फिर मैं घर जाके शाम को रिमेनिंग सेक्शन कर लूँगी। पर आपका कोई ब्रेक नहीं हो रहा, कुछ नहीं हो रहा। आप बिफोर कमिंग टू नेक्स्ट डेज़ क्लास, यू विल बी एबल टू फिनिश दैट क्लास आल्सो। है ना? देखो, आपके लिए अगर मेरे को शेड्यूल बनाना होगा, तो आई विल डू दिस। आपकी 12 से 2 पीएसआईआर की क्लास है, गो होम, रेस्ट अ बिट, लंच करो, 3:30 टू 5:30 आप पीएसआईआर रिवाइज़ कर लो। पीएसआईआर को रिवाइज़ वो है ना, फिर अगेन 15 मिनट का, 20 मिनट का, आधे घंटे का ब्रेक लेके आप पहले क्लास फिनिश करो, फिर 45 मिनट्स दोनों का रिविजन करो। जो आपका एक क्लास मिस हुआ है जीएस का, वो फिनिश करोगे, 2 घंटा बचा होगा उसमें, वो फिनिश करो एंड 45 मिनट्स रिविजन करो, सो जाओ। मिस कर दिया ना? ऑल इंडिया रेडियो सुन लो। अगर वो नहीं किया है तो ऑल इंडिया रेडियो सुन लो, फिर सोना। पर 6 घंटे कम से कम सोना है ना? कोई भी वो सारी स्टोरीज़ फेक होती हैं। मैं 3 घंटे सो के काम करता हूँ, मैं 4 घंटे सो के पढ़ता हूँ, ये सब ना झूठ होता है। चाहे वो स्टूडेंट बोले, चाहे वो पॉलिटिशियन बोले, वो स्टूडेंट ये नहीं बताता, आज तो मैं 2 घंटे सो के मैंने तैयारी करी है, पर फिर मैं अगला दिन पूरा वेस्ट करने वाला हूँ। आप सोचो आपने जब-जब रात भर जग के पढ़ाई करी है, क्या अगला पूरा दिन वेस्ट किया है कि नहीं? तो वो चीज़ें ना टी20 मैच के लिए ठीक है। बट व्हेन यू आर रनिंग अ मैराथन, व्हेन यू आर गोइंग टू प्ले अ टेस्ट मैच, आपको हर रोज़ अच्छा परफ़ॉर्म करना है। इसीलिए फोकस ऑन योर हेल्थ आल्सो। ओके? डिड आई आंसर योर क्वेश्चन? ओके। एनीवन एल्स, एनी अदर डाउट? नहीं? चलिए बाबू सर को बुला देते हैं। ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स को सर एनी टेंटेटिव डेट फ्रॉम व्हेन 2 क्लासेस ऑफ जीएस, व्हेन आर 2 क्लासेस ऑफ जीएस स्टार्टिंग? फ्रॉम थर्सडे, फ्राइडे, सैटरडे ना? हाँ, बस अभी मंडे, ट्यूसडे, वेडनेसडे आपके पास चिल टाइम है। जो सोशल वाले बच्चे हैं उनके तो बहुत ही चाँदी हो रखी है। अपनी अपनी करंट अफेयर्स वाली क्लास कंप्लीट करिए। नहीं बेटा, जनरली अभी फर्स्ट वीक ऐसा है, बट मेरे ख्याल से आपकी इन जनरल 2 क्लास होगी जीएस की हर रोज़। क्योंकि मेरे को जो शेड्यूल मिला था उसमें देयर वर 11 क्लासेस। चलिए, बाबू सर आ गए हैं, तो आई विल टेक योर लीव एंड कोई भी डाउट होगा सेंड मी अ मैसेज। ओके।
Good morning to all of you. Okay, good morning to online students. Is it audible to all of you? Can you all hear me? All right. I think Santosh Sir would have given you the briefing about the entire foundation course, I think. So first of all, welcome to Level Up Foundation course, all of you. So how many of you are completely new to the process? I mean, when I say completely new, that means you've not done any, because sometimes students do foundation somewhere in between, they come and join, or they do the second time also. So when I ask completely new, that you have not done any foundation so far. So please raise your hand. So all of you. What about you? All right. So that means that's the reason I have to ask, which means you have not done it properly. You're not satisfied. Wherever it is, whatever may be the reason, wherever it is, probably you feel that it's not complete. So probably you're repeating it. Okay, no issues. I think almost the same may be the case with the online students as well. And if this is the first time that you're doing, I probably would think that probably you may give 2027 or post 2027. That is what maybe your plan. So how many of you are planning it to give 2027 prelims? Most of you. Okay. It may be 2027 or post 2027. Most likely that is the case. So the overall briefing would have been done, but I'll just restrict to few areas which may be relevant to the subject polity. First of all, my name is Babu Gunashekaran. I have been teaching this subject for more than 10 years now. So more than 10 years, and then including my preparation, all those things, it's approximately now 18 years into the civil service, including my phase as a student and then upon as a teacher. It's more than 18 years. Specialization only in this subject is more than 10 years. So I would be dealing both your polity as well as your governance part, which is also in GS paper 2, which means roughly my contribution, as in what I will teach in GS paper 2 from the mains point of view, is roughly somewhere between 150 to 160 marks. That is, two-thirds of your marks will be covered by me. So remaining one-third will be taken away some other teacher. So apart from whatever I will cover, only two areas are left out. One is your international relations and your social justice part. So as I already said, 160 marks is my contribution, but in that majorly, approximately around 125 marks is going to be from polity itself. and governance is another 30 to 40 marks. So roughly 160 marks is what I said. And again, from the prelims point of view, if you see on an average for the last 10 years, last year was a complete exception. So how many of you have gone through the this year 2026 prelims paper? Has anyone gone through it? No idea. I mean, you have no idea what has happened, or you had some sense of what has happened. There's a lot of criticism and hue and cry after the paper was there. So my idea is not to criticize the paper, but our idea is only to be prepared for the paper, because there's no point in just criticizing, and that is not going to give us any benefit. Because UPSC is also what is called as, what is UPSC? Union Public Service Commission, but there's also another name, Unpredictable Public Service Commission. So UPSC will always throw some kind of bouncers and googly which you may not expect. So we have to be prepared for that. So, but on an average, if you see the polity paper, around 15 questions usually come from the polity part. That is the, I would say that on an average, sometimes it is more than that also. Like last year, there was an exception. Last year, there was only 4 to 5 questions. In fact, last year in most of the conventional areas, the questions was not there. So that's why it became a little controversial. But on an average, otherwise, you can expect 1/6 of your polities, 1/6 of your prelims paper is also likely to come from only the polity part. So it is so important, this particular area. And once you prepare well, policy is a low hanging fruit. What do you mean by low hanging fruit? What is sometimes you use the word low hanging fruit, which means you can pluck easily. You don't have to take a lot of effort to reap the benefit of this. But having said that, it comes with a caveat. That means it comes with a condition that polity is also one area where you can make a lot of silly mistakes if you just take it for granted. So what I'm trying to say is it's an easy subject, but you cannot take it for granted. So for some students, it's very difficult to comprehend, because you know that not everybody is having the same, we are blessed with the same mindset, or we are blessed with the same level of efficiency, because we may have interest in certain other areas. Except for barring those students, it's generally an interesting subject. It is easy to comprehend. But even if it is difficult to comprehend also, you cannot leave it out, because anyways, we have to read it for the purpose of the examination, even if you don't enjoy the subject naturally. But believe me, this is one of the interesting subjects where you can relate with a lot of current happenings and all those things. But what you have to keep in your mind is, say, for example, today we'll cover certain things, because we go step by step. Today we'll cover certain things, and when you come to the second class, you should have already revised what has happened in the first class. When you enter the second class, what is the prerequisite? What is the condition that is that, so that you are better placed to observe the things that happens in the second class when you already revised what has happened in the first class. I'm not saying just understood. Understanding is one thing. Whatever you understand is not that you will retain it for a long period of time. Understanding is mainly momentary in nature. At the time you will understand, but to retain that for a long period of time, what you'll have to do, you'll have to go and revise it. Then when you come to the second class, first class should be revised. When you come to the third class, both the first class and second class should be revised. When you come to the third class, when you come to the fourth class, first class, second class, and third class should be revised. If you do like that, most of your learning will happen during the course itself. It doesn't mean that after that you will not read. After that also you'll have to keep reading, but most of your learning for polity will complete. I mean, your basics and fundamentals should will be so strong that tomorrow any new development happens, even without the help of the teacher or something, you will be able to understand that, because your foundation is still built. But it doesn't mean that once a course is over, your learning for polity is over. No, because polity is a very dynamic subject. Some new current developments may happen. It may happen throughout the year till the time you appear for the examination. Even after you clear the examination also, some new developments may happen, but it is not mandatory for you to follow in the sense strictly for the purpose of examination. You may follow it for the purpose of your general awareness or out of your own interest. But as long as you're a student, you'll have to do it for the purpose of the examination. But once you do the foundation, automatically you'll be in a position to follow that. So the first thing from your side, what is expected is the revision. Otherwise, how this module will go, I mean, how the polity course will go, is that we have around 75 to 80 hours of classes. So it will go on a daily basis. So as I said, you revise certain things. Second thing is, it may not happen for the first few classes, but after that, every day at least 1 or 2 questions will be given. At least the thing is, 1 question will be given, but someday it may be more than 1 question also, because it depends upon the topic again. So certain topics are more relevant to the main, certain topics are only prelims relevant. So depending upon the topic, questions will also be given, and then you will have to write answers to those questions. But it doesn't mean that you will only write the answers, but I wanted you to write the answers, but we'll also discuss a structure, how to answer, what should be the content and all those things in a separate doubt solving session. But I would sincerely suggest not to wait for my discussion of the answer, but before that you write the answers. And then you compare that answer with the answer that I provide. So don't strictly wait for that particular answer. So that on a daily basis, 1 question will be given to all of you. I think weekly, 2 to 3 questions probably you'll have to write for the subject. I think the same thing will go for the other subjects as well. And I think weekly there will be a test for the subjects, whatever we cover. I think all those things Santosh Sir would have already explained as a process. So with that introduction, I'll just move on to the subject. Okay. So we'll just go to the subject. But before I go to the subject, any doubts that you wanted to specifically ask? How many of you have a background in polity? Any specific background? Yes. All right. So you know something, at least the basics are clear. That we'll see as we'll proceed to us what extent your basics are clear, what is there for you to learn. Definitely a lot of learning will happen. But probably the little bit edge that you may have is that you have already an introduction to the subject. Because preparing for civil service will take you into a lot of depth, which otherwise you will not do it in your graduation. Okay. Although we'll have to do the same thing, but the level of questions and the level of understanding in UPSC demands you a better level of understanding. It is not that we are going to read something already. If you have read fundamentalize the same thing only, it is not the same thing for it's a different thing for UPSC. Probably the depth that we'll go into will be much it will be much deeper than what you already studied. Yes, somebody, what about you? History plus polity. So I mean very basics. Okay. Political science. So how many of you are done with your graduation? All are graduates, or is somebody still pursuing your graduation? No one. All right. I think most of the things would be same with the online students also. So, anyways, we'll just proceed with the subject. So, the first thing that I want to discuss right now is what is a constitution? That's a fun thing, because whatever you are going to study is about the Constitution of India. So first you'll have to have an understanding of what is a constitution. So don't look into your handout. You can look into it, but first listen to me. What is a constitution? How would you define as to what is a constitution, or at least how would you explain it? What is a constitution? Because in GS paper 2, especially when it comes to Indian polity, what we are going to study is we are going to study the Indian constitution only. So my first question is, what is a constitution? What is your understanding? Anyone? So don't feel. Uh, hmm. It's a rule book of the country. Okay, very good. We can say it is a fundamental rule book. So rather than just a rule book, we can say it is a fundamental rule book. Because we'll understand the constitution is not the only rule book based on which our country is governed. Beyond the constitution, there are a lot of other rules. Beyond the constitution, there are a lot of other laws as well. But however, which is the fundamental of all those rules that we have in our country? It is the constitution. So I would say it is a fundamental rule book of this country. So you are right when you say that it is a fundamental rule book. But why do we need this rule book? Why do we need a constitution? To maintain law and order. Otherwise, there would be an anarchy. Otherwise, there will be an anarchy. Like it will be a law of jungle. What happens in the jungle? So, whichever animal is more powerful, they try to overpower the other. Can that happen in a civilized society? Someone who is physically strong will be able to do whatever he wants. Can we allow that in a civilized society? Hmm. Hmm. No, that's what I'm asking. So, can we allow someone who's having more power to do whatever they want to do in a civilized society? It is not possible. Because in a civilized society, the moment I use the word civilized society, you'll have to have a set of rules. Because that set of rules will make sure that everybody is able to get the maximum. Everybody is able to attain whatever they want without compromising on the ability of the others. So, somewhere or the other, you'll have to have certain minimum standards, which is drawing those minimum standards as to what is to be done, what is not to be done. It is all laid down in the constitution. That is why I said, what is a constitution? The constitution is the fundamental rule book of our country. And what this constitution deals with? This constitution deals with who is to govern our country. Who governs our country today? So all these questions are answered in the constitution. What is constitution? The constitution is a fundamental rule book of a country. It deals with these questions like who is supposed to rule our country. So that means there's a government which runs the country. And it also answers the question who will elect that particular government. So from where do you understand all these things? Suppose if I ask the question, what type of country is India? If I just ask, what is your answer to that? You are saying somebody is saying it is a democratic country. Somebody may give other reason also. Somebody may say that India is a federal political system. Somebody may say that India is a republic. But one of the answers that immediately comes to your mind, India is a democratic country. But how do you know India is a democratic country? And why the people get to choose our the elected representatives, or how people decide as to who shall form the government? Because that is what the constitution provides for. Because the country has to be governed based on what? The country has to be governed based on the constitution, nothing else. That is why we say constitution as the fundamental rule book of the country. So what are the information that you understand from the constitution? What are the rules that is already laid down in the constitution? Is what type of government is to be constituted? Who decides that? The constitution decides that. Who will elect that particular government? Who decides that? The constitution decides that. What shall be the powers and functions of such a government? Who decides that? The constitution decides that. And who shall head that particular government? Who decides that? The constitution decides that. Can that government have all the powers that they can even overpower the people? Or can that government become arbitrary in nature? The government, though elected by the people and though they exercise a lot of powers under the constitution, that government cannot become arbitrary in nature because there is a limitation upon the powers of the government as well. And who puts limitation upon the powers of the government? The constitution puts limitation upon the powers of the government. So can you give me an example of how there is a limitation upon the powers of the government? The constitution only puts a limitation upon the powers of the government. But can you give me an example? What is a limitation? What the government is not in a position to do? Because there is a limitation upon the powers of the government in the form of what is called as a fundamental rights. The rights are guaranteed to the people. And because the rights are guaranteed to the people, what the government cannot do? The government cannot arbitrarily take away these rights. Is it clear to all of you? Therefore, in a way, the constitution clearly tells us how the entire country is to be governed. Who will form the government? How the government will be formed? What are the powers and functions of the government? What the government is supposed to do? What the government is not supposed to do? What are the rights of the people? Wherever the rights of the people is there, the government cannot take away that arbitrarily. Now, you might know that recently there is a protest that is happening in Jantar Mantar. So, the protest is against seeking a resignation of a particular minister in the government. And this protest is going on for a long time, but the government is not able to do anything about it. Because who gives the right to protest under the constitution? the constitution gives a right to protest to the people. So therefore, can the government arbitrarily take away these rights? That is not possible, because the rights are protected by what? By the constitution. That is why I said, what is a constitution? The constitution is a fundamental rule book of our country. Is it clear to all of you? So this fundamental word becomes very, very important. So what is constitution? The constitution is a fundamental rule book. The constitution is a fundamental rule book of the country. Why I'm using this word fundamental? So it largely governs the principle based on which the country is governed. But the constitution is not the only principle based on which the country is governed. There are also other laws or other rules. Basically, the rule, that means it's basically a law, is based on which the country is governed. But there are also a lot of rules or laws outside the constitution based on which the country is also governed. Say, for example, how many of you drive a vehicle here? All of you, mostly? No? Have you ever driven a vehicle? Yes. Okay, so when you drive a vehicle, when you see a traffic light, if there's a red light, what does it mean? Stop. So do you stop the vehicle when you see a red light? And what do you, if you jump the red light, what is the consequence of that? Fine will be imposed. So can you tell me where in the constitution it is mentioned that when you see a red light, you have to stop the vehicle? And when you jump a red light without stopping, that a fine will be imposed. Is it a rule based on which our country is governed? Is it a rule in our country? No, it is also followed in our country. It is also a rule based on which our country is governed. Otherwise, if the traffic light is not there in our country, let us assume how we will manage the traffic. It is also a rule which is used in our country. But my question is whether this rule flows from the constitution, whether it's directly mentioned in the constitution. That's my question. But it is also a rule, but it is not a fundamental rule. See, it is a rule that we have to follow, because if you don't follow it, probably there is a consequence for that. And it is very important, because if the traffic is disturbed, the entire law and order may get disturbed. It is also a very important rule. But what I'm trying to say is it is not as fundamental as the rules that is laid down directly in the constitution, which is also you are supposed to follow. But the only thing is it is not mentioned directly in the constitution. That means I'm trying to say, what is constitution? The constitution is a fundamental rule book of the country, but the constitution is not the only rule book based on which a country is governed. Is it clear to all of you? There are also other rules, which means there are also other laws based on which the country is governed. But those are all called as ordinary laws. Ordinary laws or ordinary rules. But whatever is there in the constitution is what is called as a constitutional law or the fundamental rule. Is it clear to all of you? Therefore, only the very most important things are given in the constitution. But that is not the only thing, or that is not the only thing that is sufficient to govern such a big country like India. So beyond that, there are also a lot of ordinary laws. What are these ordinary laws or rules? So these are all usually made by what is called as the parliament. Can the parliament make laws? Can the various state legislature in our country, have you heard the word parliament? So you might have be aware of what is this parliament. Parliament is a law-making body. So the parliament can make laws. Similarly, in the states, there's a legislative body. What is a legislative body in the states? The state legislature. So generally we call that as a state legislature. Can the state legislature make laws? Yes. Can the executive issue orders? Who is the executive? Oh, what do you mean by executive? So for example, the president of India, he comes under which part? Is he part of legislature? Is he part of executive? Or is he part of judiciary? Have you ever heard of the three different organs of the state? Which I'll go step by step. We'll have to see all those things when I discuss the features. So what I'm trying to say is, for time being, that what is constitution? The constitution is a fundamental rule book of the country, but this fundamental rule book is whatever is mentioned in the constitution. But the country, the way it is governed, not everything is mentioned in the constitution. There are also other laws which is beyond or which is outside the constitution, but they are all called as what? They are all called as ordinary laws. What is a fundamental law? the constitution is a fundamental law. So for example, the traffic rules that I talked about, it is not there in the constitution. You don't have to think about it. There's not mentioned in the constitution, but still we do follow it as a rule in our country. Yes. So do you know what is the law behind this traffic rules? Any idea? Have you ever heard of what is called as a Motor Vehicle Act? There's a law in our country which is enacted by the parliament, what is called as a Motor Vehicle Act. But that is only an ordinary law. It is not a fundamental law. It is not directly given in the constitution. Therefore, to govern a big country like India, the constitution in itself is not sufficient enough. Beyond the constitution, there are a lot of ordinary laws. But between these, which is the most important thing? The most important thing is whatever is given in the constitution. That is why it is called as a fundamental law of the country. Say, assume like your human body is made up of what? If you have to see the different constituent parts of the human body, what are the different constituent parts of the human body? So, for example, there's a skeletal structure, then there is a muscle, blood, veins, nerves, or let us assume brain. All these things make up. Then only the body become functional. But however, without a skeletal structure, can you make up a human body? So similar to that, if you see, the country is governed based on different laws, but which is the most fundamental of that? It is the Constitution of India. But that's not the only thing based on which the country is governed. There are also other laws, but those laws are called as what? Ordinary laws of the land. Is that clear? Whatever is directly given in the Constitution is the fundamental law or the constitutional law. Outside the Constitution, if the law is there, then that is what is called as the ordinary law. To govern a country, everything is required. But what is the most important thing? Whatever is given in the Constitution. And when I say whatever is given in the Constitution, do you know who drafted the Constitution and gave this to the people of our country? There was a specific body which was established who drafted the Constitution of India. What is that body called as? Very good. The Constituent Assembly of India. We'll discuss about this later, but as of now, you can just have an understanding. What is this particular body? It is the Constituent Assembly of India. That means this Constituent Assembly was established when India was British India. At the time, India was not independent. Do you know when this Constituent Assembly was established? Any idea? Somebody has history and all those things. You have not read these things? 1946, very good. In 1946, this Constituent Assembly of India was established. And the purpose of this Constituent Assembly of India is to draft the Constitution of India. And this Constituent Assembly took almost 3 years. To be very specific, it took almost 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. So this is the time it has took. It is not that the entire time it was very active. Sometimes it was passive, sometimes it was active. But almost it took 3 years. And then it gave the constitution to India. And you know when the constitution came into force? The present constitution that we have. The present constitution with a date, you'll have to say, that is on 26th January 1950. Which is the day we call that as what is called as Republic. That is when India became what is called as a Republic. Since that day, our country is governed by what? Our country is governed by what is called as the Constitution, which serves as the fundamental law book of our country or the fundamental rule book of the country. But it doesn't mean that this is the only law based on which the country is governed. There are a lot of other laws outside the Constitution, which also used to govern the country, but they're not the fundamental rule. They're not the fundamental law. They are ordinary laws. So between the fundamental law and the ordinary law, which is supreme? Which is supreme? Fundamental law. That means you'll have to understand the country is governed not only by the constitution but also by the ordinary laws. But the ordinary laws or the ordinary rules cannot violate whatever is given in the constitution. So they have to be in line with whatever is given in the constitution. So for example, I given the initially that people are today protesting in Jantar Mantar against the government. So who is providing this right to the people? The constitution itself is directly giving this right to the people. Therefore, the parliament cannot make any law which can take away these rights. That is not possible. Because the other laws which is made, the ordinary laws, has to be subordinate to what is called as a fundamental law. That is the constitution. So which law is very supreme? The constitution is very supreme. That is why it is called as a fundamental law of the country. Is it clear to all of you? So first of all, you should have this basic understanding what is constitution. The constitution is a fundamental rule book of the country based on which the country is governed. But again, the constitution is not the only law based on which a country is governed. There are also other laws outside the scope of constitution. But between these two laws, which is supreme? The constitution is the supreme. Is that clear? So this is the first thing that you should understand as to what is a constitution. Now, before I proceed further, sometimes UPSC has also asked this concept of what is called as a state. State as in, this is a political science definition of state. So only when certain features are satisfied, then you can call that as what is called as a state. So what are the philosophers, political philosophers, they say when it will fall within the definition of state, it has to satisfy four characteristics. One is that any state should have its own people, it should have its own defined territory, and it should have its own government. So here it is very important. When I say it should have its own government, not necessarily a democratic government. In India, the Constitution of India provides for what type of government? Democratic government. But if you see North Korea, in North Korea, does it have a government? It does have its government, but it is not a democratic government. So not necessarily every constitution is same. It may be different in different countries. But all that it is required to consider or to come within the definition of state is it should have its own government. It is not a democratic government. It can be an undemocratic government also. It can be an authoritarian regime also. It does not matter. But it should have what? It should have its own government. So it should have its own people within its own territory. It should have its own government. And then the state should be a sovereign authority. The sovereignty should be there. This is very important. What do you mean by sovereignty? Which means that is the highest authority to decide on the internal as well as the external matters. That means they cannot be influenced by others as to what kind of decision they will take. So, do you think that India is a sovereign state? Can others influence India's foreign policy, or who will decide India's foreign policy? Our government will decide the foreign policy. Can America decide with whom we have to be friend? Or it is our leadership which will decide whom we'll be friends with? Our foreign policy will be decided by our government. So therefore, it is a sovereign state. Sovereign means that they can decide without any outside interference. Not only in external matters, but also in internal matters. Suppose if tomorrow the government comes out with a reservation policy, will that be influenced by a foreign country, or our government will decide that? Our government will decide that. So such an authority is what is called a sovereign authority. Is it clear to all of you? That means they are unaffected by other parties. That's basically what is called a sovereign. So politically, if only when all these things are satisfied, then you call that as what is called a state. It is not a legal definition, it's a political science definition of what is a state. That means any nation should have a territory of its own, it should have a people of its own. That means it should have its own citizens. Basically, people means what? They should have their own citizens, it should have a defined territory, they should have a government, and it should be a sovereign authority. Then it is called as what is state. Now, why this becomes very important? It is not very directly related to the subject polity, but UPSC time and again asks this question also. Now, for sample, I'll just give you this particular thing. Have a look into it. Okay, so we have understood as to what is a constitution. Now, just try to answer this particular question. This was asked once in UPSC examination. Just read this particular question and tell me the answer for this particular question. Just all of you read it once and then you reserve your answer and then you explain me as to why that is the answer. Online students, you can put it in the comment box as to what is the answer. So based on whatever you discussed, yes, what is your option? You're not able to see it. What shall I do? Can you see now? Ah. I think you have it. It is already uploaded. You can check with Akram sir. He will let you know. But as far as I think, it's uploaded. Okay. Okay. So tell me the answer. Option A, D. Any other option? B. Okay. What about you? A, 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 B, D. Okay. First, let us go to D. A society permanently living in a definite territory. So what you are aware of? So once you solve D, once you say D, so let us assume that what is there first. A society permanently living in a definite territory. So yes, we are aware that there is a territory with a central authority. Okay, let us assume that the central authority is a government, although it is not quite clear. So let us assume that it is a government, an executive responsible to the central authority, and an independent judiciary. Okay, even let us assume this central authority is the government. There's a definite territory. Society permanently living is people. This is people. This is territory. Let us assume this is government, although it is not quite clear. Except for the territory, nothing is quite clear. But still, what is missing in D? Sovereignty is missing. So therefore, definitely D is not the answer. In fact, the moment you said that C and D is not visible to me, I was about to say between A and B you choose, because the rest of the options are wrong. So if at all you might have any confusion, it is only between A and B. Rest of the things you can anyways easily eliminate. Anyways, so both the things are not the answer. Okay, now we'll go to B. Somebody told me B. Okay, so we'll see what is there in B. A politically organized people. Okay, let us assume people is there. A definite territory is there. Possessing an authority to govern. Let us assume a government is there. Maintain law and order, protect the natural rights, and safeguard the means of sustenance. What is explicitly not there? Okay, you can come to a conclusion. Okay, they protect their natural rights and safeguard their means of sustenance, which is an exercise of sovereign power. But although it is only an implicit understanding, you are implicitly understanding, okay, this is the sovereign exercise of sovereign power. But whenever you go for an option, you have to go for the best option. Even if multiple options are correct, appear to be right, should always choose which is the best among those options. So which is the best among those options? In fact, UPSC also given the answer A, and A is also the right answer for the reason it has a community of persons. So people are there, permanently occupying a definite territory is there, which is explicitly there. Independent of external control, what it is signifying? It is signifying sovereignty. The moment it is saying, it is explicitly signifying sovereignty, possessing an organized government. So which satisfy a definition appropriately? The best fit is option A. So what is the answer here? The answer is option A. So this is how UPSC asks you the question. So in this way, wherever we discuss, wherever some questions are there, I'll just try to put you. And what I will suggest is you go and revise, and then whenever a certain amount of area is covered, then you also start doing the previous year questions. Regular test is also given in the as a part of the classroom program. Also, you try to do all those things. Gradually, your answers, your ability to identify the right answers will improve. The mistake that you have done is not because of the reason you're not aware of it. It requires some element of practice. It's only because of the lack of practice. It's not because of the lack of understanding. Is that clear? Anyway, so in this way, we'll try to understand as we'll proceed. So now come to the next topic, salient features. So this is the foundation. So once you understand the salient features, then only we can move to the other area. So by this time, I'm sure that you are clear of the concept of what is a constitution. Is it clear to all of you what is a constitution? Constitution, to put it in a very simple way, it is a rule book, but it is a fundamental rule book. The word fundamental rule book is very important, because the country is not only governed by the constitution, it may be governed by other laws as well. But among all the laws, which is fundamental, whatever is given in the constitution. And I'm sure you are also clear as to what is the definition of a state. Now we'll go to some of the salient features of the constitution. So the first salient feature of our constitution, we are seeing the salient feature of the Indian constitution, not about the other constitution. All right. So the first salient feature of Indian constitution, because the moment that I asked that what is India, most of the students would have answered. There can be other answers also. They would say India is a democracy, because we know that democracy is one of the significant feature of our constitution. and a significant feature of our country. So what is democracy? So what is democracy? In fact, all these significant features or the salient features that I'm going to discuss, so where these features are there, they're all in the Constitution of India. All right. It's not that I'm saying it on my own. I'm saying it is a significant feature because it is there in the Constitution. So how do you define democracy? In a very simple way. What do you mean by for the people? Very good. It is for the people, by the people, and of the people. So what do you mean by for the people, of the people, and by the people? Basically, any government is for the people. To whom the government has to work for the people. Then, who will bring that government in the first place? Who will elect that government in the first place? By the people. And of the people means if they wanted to bring that government down, who has authority to bring the government down? Again, the people. So everything is revolving around only the people. That is basically what is the democracy. To put in a very simple way, it's nothing but rule by people. That is what is democracy. So in a democracy, ultimately who rule? It is the people who rule. Who is authority behind any government? It is the people. That means any government, though the people may not directly be part of the government, but that government will have legitimacy only when they have the backing of whom? Only when they have the backing of the people. So ultimate authority in forming the government, bringing the government down, everything is in the hands of what? Everything is in the hands of the people. So ultimately democracy means what is called as rule by people. Now my question is India a democracy? Yes. So in India, is there a rule by people? Does the people directly rule? Very good. So therefore, if you see democracy today, though democracy in broader sense, it is what is called as rule by people, but democracy is further divided into what is called as direct democracy and indirect democracy. It is direct democracy and indirect democracy. And today in the modern world, most of the democracies are what type of democracy? They are indirect democracy for the purpose of making it more effective. Because what is the population of India today? Although we have not done the latest census, what is the latest census we have? What is the latest census? I mean, which year the latest census was published for India? Very good, 2011 census. We should have done the 2021 census, but because of COVID, we could not do it, and it is getting postponed. So it may happen in a very short time. But what is the population of India? I think in 2011 census, it was not 140 crore, but as of now, the estimated population is around 140 crore, maybe more than that. We'll get the real figures only when we do the census. And remember, even in census, it cannot capture the complete data. In such a country like India, some of the people may still be left out. That means let us assume 140 crore people. Can 140 crore people run the government? Is it possible? It's a very complex thing. Leave out 140 crore people. Even 1 crore people cannot directly run the government. Therefore, most of the democracies across the world are what is called as indirect democracies. So, direct democracy means people directly will involve in the government. People directly will do the things. But it is very complicated process. If each and every individual, suppose let us assume tomorrow law is made, if each and every one of you have an opinion on that, is it possible to make a law after taking the opinion of 140 crore people? That's not possible. Therefore, most of the democracies today across the world, they follow what is called as indirect democracy, or which is also what is called as representative democracy. Please wait, please wait, please wait. So whenever I complete, you please wait, and then I'll give you time. At the time you can ask, okay? Because otherwise it will unnecessarily affect the flow, okay? So what is representative democracy? So representative democracy means it is indirect democracy. That means in a representative democracy or an indirect democracy, what we as a people do, we elect our representatives. And on behalf of the people who will rule the country, the representatives will rule the country. So the people do not directly rule. The representatives of the people rule the country, but who elect the representatives? It is the people who elect the representatives and give the power to the representatives. So our role is just electing the representatives, and thereafter who will take care of the governance? Who will take care of the administration of the country? The representatives will take care. Thereafter, we have no authority. So our authority is only electing the people. So in India, what type of democracy we follow? We follow what is called as indirect democracy, or which is also what is called as a representative democracy. Now, can you tell me who are our representatives? Very good. These MPs are our representatives at the union level, of course. The MLAs are also, but at the union level, the members of parliament. The members of parliament are our representatives. So what happens when the election comes? We elect our representatives, and from those representatives, the government is formed, which also I'm going to explain. So as of now, try to understand what is an indirect democracy. An indirect democracy is a representative democracy where the members are elected, and these members from where the government is formed. Is that clear? And thereupon they'll take care of everything. So therefore, when I say it is a democracy, even if it is an indirect democracy, there are certain things which has to be there. Unless and until it is there, it cannot qualify as a democracy. Can you just think of certain important criterias when it will qualify as a democracy? Even if it is an indirect democracy, it does not matter. All right, fundamental rights is definitely there, but that is not for the purpose of forming the government. You try to understand. For the purpose, I'm definitely sure in a democracy, rights has to be there, fundamental rights has to be there, but I'm not. That is not concern about the government formation. So when I talk of democracy, I'm saying that it is ruled by people. For the purpose of forming a government to rule the people, what are the essential things? So please write down some of the fundamental characteristics. Then you say whether these things are there in the Indian Constitution. So please write down. First thing is when you say that it is a democracy, even if it is an indirect democracy, it should have what is called as periodic elections. It should have what is called as periodic elections. So we have talked about the members of parliament. That members of parliament is true. Now at the central level, does the election happens periodically? That means the MPs are elected. Are they elected periodically? So far after the commencement of the constitution, how many times the Lok Sabha elections have happened? Does a Lok Sabha election happens periodically? And people vote and elect the members of the parliament? Does anyone know how many times? When the first election happened, any idea? Very good. 1951 started, 52 it is completed. 51, 52 first election happened. And from 51, 52, how many times the Lok Sabha elections have happened? When the latest election to the Lok Sabha happened? 2024. So the 2024 election was what numbered Lok Sabha election? It was 18th Lok Sabha elections. So far, how many times the Lok Sabha elections have happened? 18 times the Lok Sabha elections have happened. That means the constitution mandates that there should be a periodic election. Suppose let us assume we say that democracy means what? Democracy means ruled by people. But in indirect democracy, people does not directly rule. On behalf of people, who rules the country? The elected representatives. So suppose let us assume a constitution says that the people will elect their representatives once in 100 years. Can that qualify as a democracy? No, in a democracy, people have to periodically elect their representatives. So therefore, though there is a system of election, but it should be what type of election? It should be a periodic election. Do you know under the constitution, what is a mandate? In which periodicity the election to the Lok Sabha should happen? There's a periodic election which is mandated in the constitution. So the election has to happen every 5 years under the constitution, or even at an earlier date. So maximum is 5 years, but even at an earlier date it may happen. For example, I said after the commencement of the constitution, the Lok Sabha elections happened 18 times. So if you multiply 18 into 5, how many years are there? 90 years. But after the commencement of the constitution, how many years are over now? It's roughly around how many years? I think 76. 76 years are almost there. But already we had 18 times election. That means the 5 years is only a maximum time. So sometimes it can happen earlier also. Under what condition it can happen earlier, we'll discuss it later. So therefore, periodic election is one of the primary conditions. So periodic elections. Okay, now let us assume periodic elections. Periodic election is definitely has to be there, but that means on a regular interval, the election has to happen. But suppose let us assume the constitution allows there will be a periodic election. Every 5 years, the election will be there, but only one person will contest the election. The others should not contest the election. Then can you call that as a democracy? Why? Only if it is constitution saying only one person will contest the election, the others should not contest the election. Only one person will contest election. That means apart from him, nobody can get elected. Only he has the right to contest the election. No, but I'm saying hypothetically, that is not the case in Indian constitution. But I'm just saying that periodically every 5 years let the election happen, but only the same person will contest the election. He will contest the election. After he dies, his family members will contest the election. Others will not have the right to contest the election. If that is the case, can you call that as a democracy? No. So therefore, try to understand, when you call an election to be a democracy, it should also be what is called as a free and fair elections. Merely having periodic election alone will not qualify as a democracy. But it should be what type of election? Free and fair elections. Free election means free from any form of malpractice. Fair election means it is giving every person a chance to contest in the election. Every eligible candidate to contest in the election. If you want to contest in the Lok Sabha election, if you have the qualification, you contest. If I have the qualification, if I want to contest, I will also contest. If some rich person wanted to contest, they will also contest. Somebody from a political party want to contest, they will also contest. But ultimately, everybody should have the right to contest the election. Is it clear to all of you? Otherwise, it will not qualify as what is called as a democracy, even if it is having what is called as a periodic election. So what should be the election? It should also be a free and fair election. So does the constitution mandate a periodic election in our country? Does the Indian constitution, does it mandate a periodic election? We already seen every 5 years there has to be election. Does the constitution mandates a free and fair elections in our country? How do you say that there's a free and fair elections in our country? Because to ensure the elections are happening in a free and fair manner, a separate body is established by the constitution. And what is that body which has to ensure the free and fair election? Very good. The Election Commission of India. That is why the Election Commission of India is given a constitutional status. And this responsibility of the Election Commission of India is to ensure what type of election? Free and fair elections. Okay, suppose let us assume periodic election, they are trying to ensure a free and fair election, but the constitution is saying that only very few people will have the right to vote. Only the rich people will have the right to vote. Can you call that as a democracy? No, it is not true democracy. It is not democracy in true sense, because in a democracy, all the eligible people should have the right to vote. That means another important factor to qualify as a democracy is what is called as universal adult suffrage. Universal adult suffrage or franchise. So universal adult suffrage means every adult individual shall have the right to vote. So every adult individual shall have the right to vote. So now try to understand whether these criteria are fulfilled under the Constitution of India. Does the Constitution mandates a periodic election? Yes. Does the Constitution provides for a free and fair election? We have a separate Election Commission of India, which is established under Article 324. So the idea is not to make you memorize the articles right now, but just to make you familiar to the articles, which anyways I'll discuss later. So there's a separate election commission. There's an universal adult suffrage in the Constitution. Does anyone know which article deals with universal adult suffrage? Okay, so I am not expecting you to give the answer, because I know that you are all just very new to the class and just starting to prepare. But because somebody told that you have a background, it might be because I also understand you might not have gone into that particular depth of remembering all these things. So it is Article 326 read along with Article 325 of the Constitution. But anyways, that's not very important at this stage. But the idea is, does the Constitution provide for all these things? Yes. So we have what is called as periodic elections. We have free and fair elections. We have what is called as universal adult suffrage. So can we say that India is having the features of a democracy? Of course, there are also a lot of other features, but these are some of the important features essential to be what is called as a democracy. Of course, a democracy also need to provide rights to the people, agreed. But for the purpose of elections, I'm talking about these are the important things. Now, when you say India is a democracy, India is what type of democracy? It's an indirect democracy. It is not a direct democracy. Now, coming to a question of, do you have any direct democracy? In a modern world, we do not have any direct democracy. We do not have any direct democracy for the reason, in a direct democracy, who get to rule? The people have to rule. So such a scenario is not available. But we have certain tools of direct democracy. It is not that direct democracy is there, but some tools of direct democracy is followed in some of the countries. What is that tools of direct democracy? So for example, in certain countries, they follow a mechanism what is called as right to recall. So have you ever heard of this right to recall? Although in India we do not have this, there's something which is called as right to recall. Right to recall or just recall also they will use it. This is one of the tool of direct democracy. So I'm saying there's no direct democracy, there's no direct rule by people, but in some countries, though it is an indirect democracy, they have certain direct tools. So an example of this is right to recall. Can you just recollect, can you just guess what could be this right to recall? Call of the government if they're not working in their favor. Okay. You're coming close, but not the right answer. What is right to recall? So, for example, how many of you ever voted in the Lok Sabha elections? Have voted in the Lok Sabha elections? From which state? Which constituency? Madhya Pradesh. So, you voted in the Lok Sabha elections. And from your constituency, one MP is elected. After you elect the MP, if you're not happy with the MP, can you say, no, I don't want this MP? Is it possible? That is not possible in our country. But there are certain countries, after electing their MP, member of parliament, if they're not happy with the functioning of the member of parliament, they can again vote and recall that MP. But in India, we do not have that particular tool. Some country allow for that. So that is the tool of what is called as direct democracy. That means it's not only the people are electing, but if the people are not happy, they can directly recall that MP also. Is it clear? But India does not allow for it. India only allows for electing an MP. And thereafter, we cannot recall them. Thereafter, what we can do? If you're not happy with the MP, we'll have to wait for 5 years. No other way. In the next election, you may not vote to him. But we do not have the right to recall. But there are certain countries like Switzerland and some of the other countries, they use some of these direct tools. But is there any country on direct democracy? No. Okay. So there are certain tools. But anyways, this is not important for us. Let us focus on our country. So democracy means rule by people. And in that, what type of democracy we are? We are indirect democracy. And these are all some of the important features of indirect democracy. Now, understanding democracy is just not enough because India is also a parliamentary democracy. This is what is more important. India is what type of democracy? India is a parliamentary democracy. We can say democracy also, but the most appropriate thing is what? India is a parliamentary democracy. So can anyone tell me what do you mean by parliamentary democracy? Because there are many countries across the world which are democracies. Say for example, USA is also a democracy. UK is also a democracy. India is also a democracy. But the democracy in India and that of United States of America is not the same. So democracy basically means rule by people. So here also rule by people, there also rule by people. But in USA, it is a presidential democracy. In India, we are a parliamentary democracy. So let us not worry about what is presidential democracy for time being. But I'll discuss that also because there's a specific topic in your syllabus, which is comparison of constitution across the world. So some of the countries will compare. But for time being, that is not our concern. Our concern is understanding what is parliamentary democracy. Okay, so what is democracy? What is democracy? Just so you have understood. What is democracy? It is ruled by people. And in democracy in India, what type of democracy? Indirect democracy or representative democracy. And we can also call that as what is called as parliamentary democracy. So now try to tell me why it is also called as parliamentary democracy. Now just try to link whatever I say. Okay, we call Indian democracy as indirect democracy. What is indirect democracy means? Ruled by people's representatives. Very good. That means people are not directly ruling it. People are only electing their representatives. Therefore, we call them as what is called as representative democracy. But now the question is, where do these representatives go? After they are elected, where they go? They go to the parliament. They go to the parliament, and from where the government is formed. Therefore, India is also called as what type of democracy? India is also called as parliamentary democracy. For that matter, I'll explain you this. Now, see the 18th Lok Sabha elections happened. Right, 2024, the 18th Lok Sabha election was over. After the 18th Lok Sabha election was over, then what will happen is, what has happened rather is, that anyone who has got the majority in the Lok Sabha, for that reason, can anyone tell me what is the total strength of the Lok Sabha? 5? Presently, what is the total strength of Lok Sabha? Let me see who is getting it right. 543, 545. Any other answer? What is the authorized strength? Or what is the maximum authorized strength and what is the maximum strength? These are two different things. Maximum is 550, but what is the strength? 545. Okay. So try to understand the maximum authorized strength under the constitution presently is 550, but the maximum strength as of now is 543. It is not 545. That 545, for the reason two Anglo-Indian members can be nominated, but that has been done away with. A constitutional amendment has happened, and by that amendment, that has been done away with today. So therefore, the maximum strength that can be there in the Lok Sabha is only 543. All right. So although it may extend up to 550, but presently it is only 543. So for 543 members, the elections have happened. And this 543 members will be elected all across India. That means when I say all across India, how many states and how many union territories are there today in our country? Any idea? So even if you're not aware of it, at least now you should be aware of that. Exactly. How many states and how many union territories? First states and then union territories. How many states? 29. How many union territories? 8. So your number of states are not correct. There are 28 states. There are 28 states and 8 union territories. All right. The 29th state, Jammu and Kashmir, has been already made as a union territory. In fact, they have created 2 union territories. But however, they have merged certain union territories which already existed. So right now, how many states and how many union territories are there? 28 states and 8 union territories. Is that clear? That means these 543 members will be elected across all the states and all the union territories. So out of 28 states and 8 union territories, how many members were elected? 543 members were elected. The entire country is divided into 543 constituencies. 543 members were elected. After this 543 members were elected to the Lok Sabha, to which house they were elected? They were elected to the Lok Sabha, which is also called as what? House of People. So this is what is called as House of People. Then do you know what happens after this? Who conducts this election? This election is conducted by Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India announces a result. And after the election result is announced by the Election Commission, the leader of the single largest party or the leader of the largest coalition, then he'll go to the president and say that I am the leader of the largest coalition or I am the leader of the largest party which is having a majority to form the government. So out of this 543, what would be majority? That is more than 50% is what is majority. What would be the number to have the majority? Very good. It is 272. So more than half is what is 2. More than half is majority. So the majority would be 272. So anyone who is having 272 members, that means it could be a single party or it could be a coalition of parties as well. What do you mean by coalition of parties? Not two parties. When many parties can also come together, or two parties also. It is more than one party actually. It can be 2 also, 3 also, 4 also, 5 also, no limit. That is a coalition of party. So presently, if you see the present phenomena in our country, no single party is having this majority. But there was a coalition of parties which was having the majority. Which coalition was having the majority? There are two coalitions in our country before the elections. One is NDA, another is UPA. NDA is headed by BJP party, UPA is headed by the Congress party. So which coalition had the majority more than this 272? It was NDA coalition. And who was the leader of this coalition? Mr. Narendra Modi was the leader of this particular coalition. So what Mr. Narendra Modi has done after the election is he went to the President of India and said, my coalition having the majority and I am the leader of my coalition. Please appoint me as the Prime Minister. So then thereafter, what the President will do? The President will appoint from the Lok Sabha whoever is having this majority. It may be a single party also, coalition of party also. Whoever is having this majority, from the Lok Sabha, whoever is having the majority, who will appoint the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister will be appointed by the President. So who appoints a Prime Minister? The President appoints a Prime Minister. Is that clear? So first the Prime Minister will be appointed. Then thereupon the Prime Minister will again advise to the President, appoint the other person as my ministers. Therefore, who will appoint the other ministers? It is again the President. The Prime Minister will be appointed by the President. But who will be appointed as a Prime Minister? Usually, whoever is having the majority. That may be a single party also or a coalition of party also. And once a Prime Minister is appointed, the Prime Minister also give the names of the other people to be appointed as a minister. So, for example, Mr. Narendra Modi has given the names of Mr. Amit Shah, say let us say Mr. Nitin Gadkari, or for that matter, Mr. Rajnath Singh. They are all appointed as a ministers. But who will appoint the other ministers? President, but only on the advice of the Prime Minister. The President cannot do on his own. On the advice of whom he will appoint the other ministers? On the advice of the Prime Minister. So then, the Prime Minister and this Council of Ministers are appointed. This is basically what is called as the government formation. Now, by appointing the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, what has happened? The government is formed. Government is formed. Now, the question is, from where the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers come from? Where do they come from? The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, where do they come from? From which body they come from? They may be Lok Sabha also, Rajya Sabha also. Not necessarily they should be only from Lok Sabha. So, for example, sometimes even the Prime Minister is from the Rajya Sabha. But basically they come from Parliament. Either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, where do they come from? They come from Parliament. So, basically this government is formed from where? From the Parliament, from the members of the Parliament. That is why it is called as what type of democracy? It is called as parliamentary democracy. Is it clear? But the most important thing I have not yet discussed is not just because the government is formed from the members of the Parliament. The most important thing why it is called as parliamentary democracy. I said, what is the strength one has to have to form the government? They should have this number. And this is the most important thing. It is not necessary that they should have the strength at the time of forming the government. And even after forming the government for the next 5 years, that means what is the term of the Lok Sabha? 5 years. For the next 5 years, continuously they need to have the majority in the Lok Sabha. At any point of time, if they lose this majority in the Lok Sabha, then this government can be dismissed by the President. Who can dismiss the government? The President can dismiss the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. That means the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are continuously accountable, and continuously accountable to which house? They are continuously accountable and responsible to the Lok Sabha, because in which house they need to have the majority? They need to have the majority in the Lok Sabha. And the Lok Sabha is part of what? Parliament. So therefore, directly, who has the control over this government? The Lok Sabha has a control over the government, because where they need to have the majority? Lok Sabha. At any point of time, this majority is not there, then who will dismiss the government? The President will dismiss the government. Though the President can dismiss the government, under what condition the President can dismiss the government? When there is no majority in the Lok Sabha. Therefore, ultimately, who is having the control over the government? The Lok Sabha is having. And Lok Sabha is part of what? The Parliament. That is why it is called as parliamentary democracy. So ultimately, who is exercising the control over the government? The Parliament through what is called as Lok Sabha. But the Lok Sabha members are elected by whom? The people. So indirectly, we are part of what is called as democracy. That means we elect the representatives, and thereafter who has control over the government? The members of the Lok Sabha has the control, because the government needs to have the majority. So what is a very basic essence of parliamentary democracy? So please write down a line as to what is the very essence of parliamentary democracy. In a parliamentary democracy, not only the government is formed from the legislature. In a parliamentary democracy, not only the government is formed from the legislature. Legislature here means legislative body, which is, what is the legislative body that I'm referring to? Parliament is a legislative body. Not only the government is formed from the legislature, that is parliament in case of India. Not only the government is formed from the legislature or the legislative body, that is parliament in case of India, but also continuously accountable to the legislature. Continuously accountable to the legislature. The word continuously accountable to the legislature is very important. So in case of India, this is in general sense that they are continuously accountable to the legislature. In case of India, the government is continuously accountable to which house? Among the two houses. See, the parliament has got Lok Sabha also, Rajya Sabha also, but in which house they have to continuously have the majority? They need to have the continuous majority in the Lok Sabha. At any point of time in the next 5 years, if they lose the majority, who will dismiss the government? The president will dismiss the government. So therefore, the government has to always have the majority. If the government does something arbitrary on their own, then who may withdraw the support? The Lok Sabha may withdraw the support, and thereafter, who will dismiss the government? The president can dismiss the government. Therefore, in this way, who is having control over the government? Which house is having control over the government? The Lok Sabha is having control over the government. So this type of control that the Lok Sabha, which is part of the parliament over the government, is what is called as parliamentary democracy. Is it clear to all of you? So we people cannot directly remove the government, but who can remove the government? The Lok Sabha, by not supporting the government, then they may ensure that the president is removing the government. So therefore, the president is only a nominal authority, but who has to withdraw the support so that the president can remove the government? The Lok Sabha. So therefore, the people's representative are exercising control over the government. And this form of government or this form of democracy is what is called as parliamentary democracy. Because the government is accountable to where? To the parliament. Is it clear to all of you? So this is basically the idea of parliamentary democracy. This is many times asked in UPSC examination. What is the essence of parliamentary democracy? What is the essence of parliamentary democracy? The very essence of parliamentary democracy is the executives are accountable to the legislature. So who is the executive here? It is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. They are the executive body. They are accountable to whom? They are accountable to the Lok Sabha, which is part of the legislature. So what is the very essence of parliamentary system? Who is accountable to whom? The executives are accountable to the legislature. This question in the last 10 years, at least 4 or 5 times they have asked. What is the essence of parliamentary democracy? What is the essence of parliamentary democracy? The executives are accountable to what is called as the legislature. All right, so please go through the concepts. So please go through the concept of what is a constitution, what is state, what is democracy, what are the essential features of democracy, what is indirect democracy, what is parliamentary democracy. So if you have any questions, please ask me. So please go through it for a moment. Otherwise, we'll move to the next concept, that is separation of powers. First, go through it. See, the handout has got all the things, but sometimes some examples and all those things that I may discuss, which you can make a note of it. But as far as for your easy preparation, try to consolidate everything in one area. If you take the notes by your own, it is better to do that also. But if you are using the handout, there only you try to consolidate that so that it becomes easy for your revision. If you have the things scattered in multiple places, then it becomes difficult for your revision. One book you can keep. So there are 2 books that you can refer to, but not both the books you'll use. You'll have to choose between one book. Either you follow 𝐂𝐿𝐵 in addition to that as a reference book, or you can follow D.D. Bose, which is a wonderful book in my opinion. but it has its own disadvantage. The language might be little complex. But if you are someone who feels that you are okay with the language, I would suggest to go with DD Basu. But if you're not okay with DD Basu in terms of the language, you can go with Lakshmikant. The advantage of reading DD Basu is it will also explain you the logic, the reason behind certain things, which is all lacking in what is called as Lakshmikant. But that is why the class is there. Anyways, we'll do the reasoning, logic, and all those things. So if you're not comfortable with DD Basu, you can do with Lakshmikant also. So, but keep that as a reference book. So wherever you feel like you want to read more, probably you can go through the books, those areas. But otherwise, all the basic things related to the constitution will be almost covered in the class. So only one book, either DD Basu or Lakshmikant, in addition to the class notes. What constitutional terms? Not necessary. Those things will be covered in the class. Those things will be covered in the class, and in addition to that, any one of these book itself is sufficient enough. So there's no point in doing multiple books. It is not going to help you. Just only 3 sources, I'll say. One is whatever is the class notes, one reference book out of the 2 books, and then one current updation. We'll do some current updation as long as the class is there. But probably after the class is over, you may be giving your prelims next year. So some current update has to be there. So one current updation. And that also, if you can consolidate in the same notes, it is more than sufficient. Only these things has to be done. All right, any questions, or shall I move to the next one? Separation of powers. Any tentative date when 2 classes will begin? Your 2 classes will begin, I think, from Thursday. I think you already got the schedule. You might be having the schedule. So as far as whatever I know is from Thursday. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will have only one class, I think, in the morning. So every Thursday and Friday we'll be having 2 classes. So in that way it will continue. Okay, shall I proceed to the next thing? Separation of powers. Please write down a line as to what is separation of powers. It is an idea. It is an idea. It is an idea where 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 different powers are distributed to different powers are distributed to different powers are distributed to different organs of the state, where different powers are distributed to different organs of the state, rather than rather than rather than concentrating all the powers in one single authority. So what is this idea? This is an idea where the different powers are distributed to different authorities rather than concentrating all the authority or all the powers in one single authority. Now, what is the drawback of concentrating all the powers in one single authority? Suppose, let us assume you run an organization. Let us assume, you just think you run an organization, and then how will you run that organization? Whether you'll have different supervisors for different area, or you'll have only one supervisor who will do everything. Why? How it will help? First of all, he may not be an expert in all the areas. Yes, agreed. That is definitely there. So you can bring different supervisors. That is one point of view. Definitely agreed. But there is a saying which is called as power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What does this mean? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Too much power without any control probably can allow that authority to misuse that power. Can he misuse that authority? So for example, let us assume in our country, so today the idea of separation of powers is that we entrust different functions in the hands of different authorities. So for that purpose, horizontally, we have created three organs of the state. So what are the three organs of the state? You can just write one more line. So what is the last line that you have written? Just little before that, the entire statement. Under the Constitution of India, so please write under the Constitution of India, under the Constitution of India, different powers are distributed. Under the Constitution of India, different powers are distributed horizontally. Between three organs of the state. Between three organs of the state. The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Across three organs of the state, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So what do you mean by the legislature part? The legislature part is nothing but the parliament. What do I mean by legislature? The legislature is parliament. In the state, the legislature is nothing but the state legislature. They're all part of what is called as legislature. So when I say executive, who are all part of the executive at the union level and state level? We also have the union government, we also have the state government. At the union level, who is the executive? The president is the head of the union executive, although he's a nominal executive. The president, the vice president, the prime minister, and the other council of ministers, they're all part of what is called as union executive. So similarly, at the state level, you have the governor, you have the chief minister and the council of ministers. They're all part of the state executive. And then you have an organ of judiciary. So we have a separate other organ, that is judiciary. So judiciary here means the hierarchy of courts. All the courts in our country comes under the judiciary. So who is at the apex of the judiciary? The Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the apex. Below the Supreme Court, you have the high courts, and below that, you have the subordinate courts. So they all fall under what is called as judiciary. So basically, under the Constitution, what is the idea? So our Constitution allows for separation of powers. That means the Constitution creates three separate organs. What are the three separate organs? The legislature, the executive, and judiciary. And they also assign them set of responsibilities. That means it is your function to do only this. It is your function to only do this. It is your function to do only this. Instead of this, they created one authority, let us assume. Okay. So before going to that, what is the Constitution saying? As a legislature, what is your function? Your function is to make laws. What you can do? You are supposed to make the laws. What is the primary function, or what is one of the important function of the legislature? To make laws. And what is the function of the executives? What they'll do? They'll implement those laws. Very good. They'll implement those laws. They'll implement the laws. And what is the function of the judiciary? What they'll do? What do you think that the judiciary will do? Okay, they are making the laws. The executives are implementing the laws. Job is over. One authority is making the law, other authority is implementing the law. Two, only they will see the implementation of the law. No, what I'm trying to say, you are right. You are definitely right, but it is not holistic. Now, what I'm trying to ask, let me put the question. So you said that to see whether the laws are implemented properly. So when they say implemented properly, whose job is to implement the law? Executives. That means, are you trying to say the judiciary will have control only over the executives, or the judiciary will have control over the legislature also? So what they will see with regard to the legislature? So when you say that they will see whether the laws are implemented properly, perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. But that is not the only job of the judiciary. The judiciary is not only going to see whether the laws are implemented properly, but the judiciary will also see whether the laws are made properly in the first place. Because they have to see whether the laws are made properly, because the laws cannot be made beyond what the constitution mandates. So therefore, their job is to see what? First of all, the laws are made properly, and thereupon whether the laws are executed, implemented properly. If the laws are not made properly in the first place, if you implement an improper law, then also it is a wrong thing. Therefore, what the judiciary will see? The laws has been made properly. That means, what is the role of the judiciary? Basically, have you ever heard of the word judicial review? So this is the power of what? This is the role of what is called as judiciary. They do in what is called as judicial review. So you can just write down a line as to what is judicial review. Then further we'll proceed on top of this. What is judicial review? You can write down. It is a power of the judiciary. It is a power of the judiciary to review. To review means to look into, basically. It is the power of the judiciary to review, that is to look into the action of the legislature. It is the power of the judiciary to look into the action of the legislature and the action of the executive. It is the power of the judiciary to look into the action of the legislature and the action of the executive and 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 declare such action as unconstitutional if they are in violation of the constitution, and declare such action as unconstitutional if they are in violation of the constitution. This condition is very important. If they are in violation of the constitution. So when such actions of the legislature and the executive can be declared to be unconstitutional and void? Only if those actions are what? In violation of the constitution. Therefore, the judiciary can judicially review the actions of the other two organs of the state strictly in line with the constitution. That means if the laws are beyond what the constitution allows for, say for example, the constitution allows for fundamental rights. Some law made by the parliament is taking away the fundamental rights. Can that law be declared to be invalid by the court? Yes, through the exercise of what is called as judicial review. Or the law is right, no problem with the law, but the implementation is unconstitutional. The law is saying something, the executives are doing something else when they are implementing it. Can those executive actions can also be declared to be void? Yes, if it is in violation of the constitution. So strictly in line with the constitution, they can review it. That's basically what is called as judicial review. So judicial review basically means it is a power of the courts to judicially review the action of the legislature and also the action of the executive, but provided what? When they can review it? If their actions are in violation of the constitution. As long as their actions are constitutional, then it cannot be, anything can be done by the judiciary. The judiciary does not have any extra power, just to protect the constitution. So they will see whether their actions are in line with the constitution. Now my question is, now we are coming to the concept of separation of powers. Now my question is, let us assume that there's only one authority in the constitution. That authority will make the law also. That authority will implement the law also. That authority will review it also. So would it be appropriate to have such an authority? What is the problem in that? Will they accept their own mistake? It would be difficult. So what is a better way of protecting the constitution is only by giving different powers to different authorities. And you function only within that domain. So what is the function of the legislature? You make the laws. What is the function of the executive? You implement the laws. Whether you make the law within the scope of the constitution, whether you implement the law within the scope of the constitution, who will check that? The judiciary will check that. Is that clear to all of you? So this is what is called as the concept of separation of powers. But what is more important is the Constitution of India not only provides for separation of powers, but rather it also provides for a concept of what is called as checks and balances. In fact, the Constitution of India relies more upon the principle of checks and balances rather than what is called as pure separation of powers. So let's take down one small question, mains question. And then I'll explain about it. It will take me 5 minutes after that. Just write down the question. The Constitution of India relies upon the principle of the Constitution of India relies more upon the principle of the Constitution of India relies more upon the principle of checks and balances than pure separation of powers, or than complete separation of powers. Comment. Comment means basically I wanted you to express your ideas on the thought that is given in front of you. What is the thought that is given in front of you? It's a 10-marker question. You can write as per the UPSC standard, you should write up to 150 words to 200 words. But as of now, because you are all very new, for the next 3 to 6 months, you don't have to worry about the time limit or the word limit. If you right now try to worry about the time limit or the word limit, your answers will not get formed in the first place. Because I'm sure that your ideas now may not be very concise. You will not be able to express whatever you think in a very limited number of words. That will take time. So therefore, if you worry directly about the word limit or the time limit, you will not write the answers in the first place. Therefore, you should just forget about the time limit or the word limit. Right now, the only idea that you should keep is whether I am able to express whatever I think. It may take more words, less words, you don't worry. It may take more time, less time, that is not the idea. First of all, the baby has to walk. First, it has to crawl. Then only you can think of walking. So right now, it is not for time for you to walk. You'll have to first start crawling. Okay. So don't worry about the word limit or the time limit, but just see whether you are able to address what is asked in the question. That should be the only concern right now. Now, can anyone tell me what is this idea? I have not explained it completely, but let me see whether you understood the question. Then I'll explain it further. I hope you understood the concept of separation of powers. What is separation of powers? So different powers are given to the different organs, but you'll have to understand one thing, one peculiar thing under the Constitution of India, not only for India, but most of the constitution, which is a parliamentary democracy. That means what is separation of powers? Different organs are having different powers. But the Constitution of India does not provide for what is called as complete separation of powers. Or in other words, it does not provide for pure separation of powers because there is some element of overlap between these organs. Which organ is overlapping with other? So can you just see? So based on whatever you have learned, is there any element of overlap here? Among the three organs, one organ is completely separate. No issue. It is clearly separated. Which organ is clearly separated? Very good. Judiciary is completely separated. The judge is not part of the executive or part of the legislature. He is a separate organ. The judiciary is separate. But what about these two organs? Are they separate from one another? They are overlapping because the entire executive is coming from where? From the legislature. That means the executive is nothing but a subset of the legislature. Yes, the legislature is a broader body, but from where the government is formed? See, Mr. Narendra Modi is a prime minister. Is he also a member of parliament? He is also a member of parliament from which house? Lok Sabha. Mr. Amit Shah is a home minister. He is part of the government, executive. Is he also a member of parliament? From which house? Lok Sabha. Not important if you are not knowing that, but maybe later you can see. Same is the case with the defense minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh also. They are all executives. They are supposed to implement the law, but they are also part of what? They're also part of the legislature. And being part of the legislature, can they also influence the law making? They also vote in the bill when it is introduced in the House. They also discuss in the Parliament. So therefore, in these two areas, there's no clear separation. So therefore, the Constitution does not provide for a clear or a complete separation of powers. Therefore, we rely upon one more thing, what is called as checks and balances. So what is this checks and balances? Just write down a line. What is this concept of checks and balances? The idea of checks and balances, under the Constitution of India, the idea of checks and balances under the Constitution of India, the idea of checks and balances under the Constitution of India allows one organ to have some element of control, allows one organ to have some element of control over the other organ, allows one organ to have some element of control over the other organ. Therefore, none of the organs under the Constitution, can function arbitrarily. None of the organs under the Constitution can function arbitrarily. Though the Constitution, write down, though the Constitution does not provide for a clear separation of powers, though the Constitution does not allow for a clear separation of powers, the principle of checks and balances ensures the constitutional balance. Ensures the constitutional balance. Okay, now we'll have to understand with examples how these checks and balances operate. So therefore, try to understand what is separation of power. Separation of power is an idea where different organs are given different authorities to do something. But where there is a problem, there is no clear overlap between two organs. Where there is no overlap, where there is an overlap, and where there is no clear separation of powers between the legislature and the executive. Therefore, we are saying that the legislature can make laws, but the executive can influence the law making because they're all part of it. So therefore, there's no clear overlap in this, but therefore we rely upon the principle of what is called as checks and balances. How this principle of checks and balances, because they cannot act as one team. If they act as one team, then it becomes problematic. Therefore, we rely upon more on the principle of what is called as checks and balances. What is the system of checks and balances? So, for example, can the judiciary have some element of control? How one organ is having an element of control over the other organ. In separation of powers, we are not concerned about how control they exercise. One organ is exercising control over the other organ. In separation of powers, you are only seeing whether you have a separate function to perform. But through that function, are you able to control another organ? That is a system of what is called as checks and balance. How do you think judiciary is able to control the other two organs? Through exercise of their power of judicial review. Through the judicial review, can they see what type of implementation is done? What type of law is made? So through judicial review, they can control. And if the executive action is beyond the scope of constitution, or the law that is made is beyond the scope of the constitution, can those laws and executive action be declared to be invalid by the courts? Yes. The judiciary can do it through the power of what is called as judicial review. So through the power of judicial review, they are able to exercise control over the other organs. Now, is the legislature able to control the executive? What is the way by which the legislature can control the executive? Is there any element of control the legislature has over the executive? Just now we have seen what is the control that the legislature is having over the executive. We already seen Executive here means the government. The government always needs to have the majority where? In the Lok Sabha. What if the Lok Sabha is saying that we will not give you the support? So therefore, can the legislature have the control over the executive? And that is basically what is called as, so through the power of judicial review, the judiciary is having control over the legislature also. The judiciary is having control over the executive also. So this is the control the judiciary is having over them. Can the legislature have control over the executive? Because from where the executives have to have the majority. The executives always have the majority in the legislature, to be very specific in the Lok Sabha. And that is what is called as, have you ever heard of a motion which is called as no confidence motion? How many of you heard about this no confidence motion? No confidence motion is like a proposal which can be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and if it is passed, then that means the Lok Sabha is not having confidence in the government. And if the Lok Sabha passes that no confidence motion, then what will happen to the government? The government will be dismissed. Who will dismiss the government? The president will dismiss the government. Therefore, at any point of time, the executives need to have the majority in the Lok Sabha. So through this majority, is the legislature having control over the executives? Yes, this is the control that the legislature is having over the executives. That means if the executive is trying to do something arbitrary, who can control the executive? The legislature can control the executive. Does the legislature have control over the judiciary? Because the principle of checks and balances means every organ should have some element of control over the other organ. Therefore, nobody functions arbitrary in nature. Therefore, though the judiciary is a very important thing, that the judiciary should also be under the control. Otherwise, what if the judges pass any orders that they want? That means the law is not violating the constitution, but what prevents a judge saying that this law is also violative of the constitution? Can the judge be punished for that? If the judge passes an erroneous order, can a judge be punished for that? No judge can be punished for any orders that they pass. But that should not make them to arbitrarily function. Therefore, they should also be controlled. How do you think that the legislature can have control over the judiciary? And similarly, the executive can have control over the judiciary. How? All right, they can make the laws, but the most important thing is, I'm trying to ask, do you know how the judges can be removed? Say, for example, how the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court can be removed. Who is authority to remove the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court? Who is authority? Very good. It is a president. So who can remove them? The executive. The president is part of the executive. So the president can remove the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. So through this, is the executive having a control over the judiciary? Yes. But the president can remove them only if a motion is passed in the houses of the parliament. That means this has to be addressed. A proposal has to be introduced to remove the judges, and it has to be passed with a specific majority. Only it is passed with a specific majority, then thereafter who can remove the judges? The president can remove the judges. So therefore, in the removal of the judges, who has got the control? The legislature and the executive have got the control. So in this way, you see that one organ is trying to have some element of control over the other organ. Suppose, let us assume an arbitrary law is made by the legislature. Who can strike down the law? The judiciary can strike down the law. An arbitrary implementation is happening. Who can strike down that executive functioning? The judiciary can strike it. But if an arbitrary judgment is passed by a judge again and again, then who can remove the judge? The president can remove the judge, provided who passes a motion for that? The legislature passes a motion. So in this way, you will try to understand there is some element of control that one organ is having over the other organ, though there is no clear separation of powers. This concept is what is called as what? This concept is what is called as checks and balances. Now, please read your question once again. So can anyone read the question? Please read the question. Okay. So that means this question you'll have to explain, first of all, that means overall this question has to have all these things. First of all, you'll have to explain what is separation of powers. And then after explaining probably what is separation of powers, you'll have to say how there is no complete separation of powers. And because there's no complete separation of powers, the constitution also introduces a principle of what is called as checks and balances. And basically explain as to what is checks and balances, where one organ is having some element of control over the other organ, and give an illustration for that. A brief illustration as to how this checks and balances function in our country. All right, so just try to write this answer. And then we'll have one day, I think in the evening, where whatever questions I give in that particular week, I'll give you some sample answers for that particular question as well. So in that way, we'll proceed further. All right. So this is how we'll proceed further. So just go through all these things. If you have any questions, please ask me. Otherwise, we'll wind up the session. Structure is all okay. Structure anyway you can do. So it is not that whatever I told should be the structure. The only thing is whatever you start, it has to have a coherent way of flowing. And then whatever is asked in the question, everything should be interconnected and well explained. That's it. It is not that whatever I said in the same way you have to do that. The structure should be that it should flow from one part to another part. So even if you start by other way also, it's perfectly fine, as long as you are explaining everything asked in the question in a coherent manner. See, it's not about what is more efficient. The UPSC does not say something more efficient over the other thing. The only thing is which is effective for you to reflect your idea. See, there are some questions which point format. Some philosophical questions like this cannot express effectively in a point format. Probably it requires a paragraph format. Or it can be a hybrid model where you, wherever it is required, you put it in a paragraph, then you do it in a point. It's all okay. UPSC is not discriminating the point format over the paragraph or paragraph over the point format. But what is comfortable for you, where you can express your ideas better. If you're able to do it in paragraph format, it's okay. Point format also okay. But a little drawback of the paragraph format is probably you'll have to write a little bit more to express the same content rather than in a point format. But if you're still comfortable in writing speed and all those things, you can follow that also. There's no specific format that UPSC prefers. Okay, it is up to you. Whichever way that you are able to express your ideas well, that is the way that you should follow. All right, so whenever you write the answers, try to keep one thing in your mind. So whatever is asked in the question, that has to be definitely be in your body part. But before that, you can give a very short introduction for 2 to 3 lines. And whatever you written, you try to summarize in the concluding lines. You just try to do that. But when I give the sample answers, I'll discuss further on that. Okay, because right now I don't want to tell you anything. You just do it on your own. And then later you can compare that with the sample answers. All right, any queries? So there's a question, is it mandatory for the executive to be part of the legislature? What is the answer to that? In the Indian Constitution, is it mandatory for the executive to be part of the legislature? Is it mandatory for the executive to be part of the legislature? That is a constitutional design. The executives cannot be outside the legislature. So, or in other words, suppose if someone is not a member of parliament, can he or she be appointed as a minister? Even someone who is not a member of parliament can be appointed as a minister, but they can continue as a minister only maximum for a period of 6 months. Within 6 months, anyways, they have to become part of the legislature if they have to continue further. Therefore, is it mandatory for the executives to be part of the legislature? It is a constitutional design. The constitutional design that mandates the executives to be part of what is called as a legislature. He can be a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, that does not matter, but he has to be a member of a parliament. Is it clear? So it's a constitutional design. That is why we say that there is no clear separation of powers. There is overlap between which 2 organs of the state? Between the legislature and the executive. Clear? So with that, we'll wind up the class for today. Yes, any doubts quickly? How the legislature has power on the judiciary? I said the judges can be removed. Who can remove the judges? President. But the president can do so only after motion is passed in the legislature. The president on his own cannot do it. The president is just a nominal authority who can pass the removal order. But for the president to pass the removal order, first of all, who has to approve it? Who has to empower the president to do that? The legislature has to improve. The legislature, there will be a discussion and with some majority they have to pass it. That's a lengthy process. But as of now, for the president to remove the judges, first of all, who has to approve that? It has to be approved by the legislature. Is that clear? Not even a single judge has been removed because the process is extremely difficult. Which you'll understand that the process in the legislature, I said, is extremely difficult. And the Constituent Assembly has deliberately made it extremely difficult for the reason why. Otherwise, the judges will be afraid of passing some orders against the government. If the judges pass some orders against the government, then anyways, the government which is part of the legislature So they can pass that motion in the legislature and then the president can remove them. So to avoid that, deliberately it has been made tough. But at the same time, the judges should also know that they can be removed if they arbitrarily function. Therefore, the removal process is also there. But however, in the constitutional history of India, not even a single judge has been removed till this point of time. But doesn't mean that the judges cannot be removed. There are few judges who are about to be removed. Before that, they resigned. So for that reason, it has not happened. But it doesn't mean that they cannot be removed at all. Is it clear to all of you? And even now, recently, there is a High Court judge from Delhi who has been transferred to Uttar Pradesh. For him, a removal motion is pending. So therefore, they can be removed. But we do not have a president till this point of time. The process is same for the Supreme Court judge and the High Court judge, but not for the other subordinate judges. All right, these are all some advanced things. We are just doing not even ABCD. So in terms of polity, so these questions anyways will be answered when we go to the respective part. So you might have a lot of doubts, but try to understand. You may think that these are all things probably I know, but even here you will have a lot of things to learn. Even if you have done your PhD, because UPSC preparation is something little different from the other preparation, because there you might have covered a lot of things but not in depth. But what I'm trying to say is, suppose if I'm discussing certain things, I'm not discussing certain things in those areas which you feel that you need more clarity, for certain reasons I'm not discussing it. Because if I go about the removal of the judges right now, you will not understand anything without understanding the other things. Therefore, right now my objective is only to explain the concept separation of powers and the checks and balances. It's not about how a judges is to be removed. That I'll discuss when I take up the judiciary topic. So for certain purpose only, I'm not discussing certain things because we'll do that at the relevant area. Is it clear to all of you? So what is the requirement from your side? Before coming to tomorrow's class, you'll have to revise all these things. And before, I think today is what day? Monday. I think Wednesday or somewhere in this end, you will have one doubt session also. In that session, I'll discuss the questions that I'm giving for the entire week. But don't wait for that. Before that, only you try to write something. So later you can compare the model answer with your answer. Yes. Anyone he can do, but what he will do if he is appointing anyone, because the constitution does not specifically say who is to be appointed as a prime minister. It is only a conventional practice. Usually, the leader of the largest party is appointed or the leader of the largest coalition is appointed. Suppose, let us assume, instead of appointing Mr. Narendra Modi as the prime minister, who is the leader of the largest coalition, for the example that you have chosen, which is not prevented in the constitution, the president could have appointed Mr. Rahul Gandhi also as a prime minister. But after appointing what? They have to prove the majority in the house. If they don't prove the majority in the house, then that government has to be dismissed, which is an unnecessary thing. So the president will see that who has the capability to prove the majority or who is already having the majority. Only the leader of that particular party or the leader of that coalition is to be appointed as a prime minister as a conventional practice. Clear? Otherwise, it is unnecessary confusion. Okay, because they don't have the majority, what is the purpose of appointing them? Because I said it is not only at the time of appointment that they should have the majority, but they should have majority for the next 5 years. Therefore, it does not serve any purpose to appoint someone who's not having the majority. Is it clear? All right, so revise all these things. We'll continue the class tomorrow, okay? You can contact Akram sir, who is your coordinator. He'll guide you on all these things. I think you can upload that in the online portal or something, and then it will be reviewed and the marks will be and the feedbacks will be given. But you can contact Akram sir. Okay, he'll guide you on this. Okay, thank you very much.